Happy Friday, ladies and gents. We're ready to rock and roll this joint. Accelerating your business. How's that going to happen? Let's find out.
Good. Shut up and sit down.
The Business Bros Podcast was created for you. Learn from the business professionals who come to share their stories. Find out what's working in business and social media, what's hot and what's not, straight from the mouths of successful entrepreneurs out there doing the real work. And now, welcome to another episode of
Business. We got the fire going on.
Oh, yeah.
In San Diego. Ham, take it away.
A heat wave in San Diego. We're bringing the fire right here. All right, all you business pros. Before we jump into the show, just a quick reminder to please subscribe on whichever platform it is that you're listening to us on today. Give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, and drop a review, and help other like-minded business owners find value from our awesome guests while we rise up in the podcast rankings. And if you want to be a guest on the show, I missed that last part. We will really appreciate it. And if you want to be a guest on the show, we'd love to have you on and learn from you as well. Go to www.businessbros.biz/podcast guest. Schedule your time slot. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at Business Bros Pod. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited and so honored to bring another incredible guest on the Business Bros Pod. Our guest today is the preeminent advisor to CEOs who want to safeguard their businesses and their lives from unpredictability, establishing strategic partnerships that empower them to never again worry about growth. Having worked with over 1,500 CEOs across 33 countries, our guest is an expert in helping businesses expand internationally. As a world-renowned speaker and philanthropist, our guest's goal is to help over 800,000 kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using local businesses in the next 3 years. Local resources in the next 3 years. We can't be more thrilled to hear some incredible stories from this well-traveled thought leader and humanitarian. Joining us today out of the great state of Texas, the CEO Confidant from Divine Human Ventures and Wisdom for Kids. Welcome to the show, Angel Rebo.
All right,
well
Angel.
Well done.
Thank you so much. This has been probably one of the most amazing introductions ever in my life. Thank you so much for being who you are, guys. Thank you.
Oh, well, what can I say? James prides himself on the intros. They're probably
fun.
Yeah, they're fun. They're you know what? Everybody has a strength and everybody has a weakness. I would suck at writing your intro, but James over here, he's got fire when it comes to writing those intros.
I tell you, I mean, I've been introduced a few times, and he's used actually completely different words. He's a master. He's a super eloquent guy. I can tell you that. Thank you so much.
My heart.
You are
making my head
really?
grow.
Yeah, you're a cunning linguist, Ham. You're a cunning linguist. All right. So speaking of talents, right? Speaking of strengths, speaking of weaknesses, look, anytime anybody's going to start a business, we all start off thinking, I know what it takes. I'm going to make this thing grow. I'm going to me, I. But ultimately, you need a team to make things happen. So Angel, tell me a little bit about what it takes to grow a business and what is it that you do exactly?
Exactly. So basically, in a nutshell, what I do is I help both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. It means that I help them take their businesses internationally. Okay. And what it takes for someone to accelerate the growth of their businesses by going internationally, the first thing that it takes is the willingness to do it, but the resources. The resources. I've seen many times people wanting to go internationally, fully internationally, and they have not made their homework. They have not really taken into consideration what it takes to go internationally. Very often it happens to us entrepreneurs that if we have an offer online, we think, okay, so if we are super successful in the US, then going south of the border, we just translate our materials, our courses, whatever that is, and we're going to be successful. I hate to say no. No, there's many more things involved in going internationally, and you have to do your homework, and there's financial implications on the decision of going international. So you have to consider those implications.
Let's hover here for a second, because we live in an age where the World Wide Web has literally shrunk the planet. We can have international quote unquote business going on from the living room or your basement or wherever you're talking about. So let's hone in on that. What do you mean when you're talking about growing internationally?
Yes, so that's true. You can run your business from your home, and you have the worldwide, web, and you can go everywhere. But every single potential client in every single country, geography, culture thinks differently. You have to embrace, you have to acknowledge that, and you have to really know what is going to drive a potential sale from another country. Okay, so I mean, being reactive, we might have clients from other geographies, but the reality is that talking to someone, let's say, south of the border or north of the border, talking about the US, right? It's different. And you have to be, if you really want to be strategic and you really want to be successful, you have to do it differently. You have to think about it. Okay, so you can run your business from your home and you have the World Wide Web open, but there are things that you have to take into consideration from the point of view of the client. You have to talk to the client differently on every culture. Remember, we are, separated, even sometimes even trying to go, let's say I have a business in Texas and I really want to be successful in taking my business to another state. That there are cultural differences, right? That
huge.
Someone in Utah is different from someone in Texas, right? And everybody knows that. So if you really want to be successful, does it make sense to consider the differences between selling in Utah and selling in Texas? Of course it does. And you spoke about in the introduction, you actually mentioned something, which is, are you partnering with the right people? Probably if you want to go international, or even, as I said before, to another state, what about partnering up with someone who's already there, who's already aware of those differences that can help you be more effective in conducting business in that area? And this is very often a blind spot that people forget. So, okay, it's easy to run your business from your home, but be mindful, be aware of the differences.
What kind of differences should we be looking for when we're first starting out? Because there are so many. I mean, like you said, there's cultural differences, there's currency differences, there's tax treatments. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can think about when we're talking about those differences. But what are some of the first things that we should kind of pay attention to?
So that's why go step by step. I mean, going internationally right out of the gate, I don't think is the right thing to do, unless you only go internationally to a specific area because you know that there's a need for that there, and you know that the people there are going to buy from you. Unless that's the case, it's, scaling up by, accelerating the growth of your business by going international, it means that you have already had to establish your business somehow. That's very important. Okay, so initially, I don't recommend anybody doing that unless, again, that's going to be your number one strategy. So if that's your number one strategy, you have to really know what these people want. Okay, the people in this area, what do they want? So you have to really speak with these people over there. Sometimes, we tend to think, oh, it's extremely difficult. No, it's very easy. Reach out. There's social media again, and you can go in social media and you can start talking to people who live in that area. It's really simple. There's something in the entrepreneurial world, in the startup world, there's something called a minimum viable product. You've probably heard this thousands of times, right? Mm-hmm. So when you start your business, you probably have a minimum viable product or service that you want to offer to your audience, right? So the first thing you have to do is, if you want to go international, start talking to your audience about what you want to do. And I start asking them, hey, if I was to launch this product, sell it there, or this service, would you be willing to buy from me? And what would be the kind of service or product that you would buy from me, in that particular, area of expertise that I have? So that's the first thing. Talk to your market early on your business strategy. And sometimes, and I think that's probably, we are all to blame, for this, which is we try to be perfectionists. We try to be like, we have all the responses, all the answers before we do anything else. There's one business mantra. There's one mantra I use with every single one of my clients. I've been using for the last 5 years since I started my own business, which is take imperfect action now. Take imperfect action now. Hey, don't worry about anything else. You only need yourself, and you need to start reaching out to the people in the market, in the place where you want to start selling your products or your services. That's it. Start talking to them and start making mistakes. Start making mistakes. There's no such thing as the perfect sales pitch, the perfect service, the perfect product. There's only the thing that you reach out to the potential buyers and you know what they think, and keep on making, keep on perfecting your pitch, keep on perfecting your product and your service. Really, that's the first step. Take imperfect action now.
I love that. I love that because it's absolutely true. I talk about that all the time about taking action, and you have a choice. You can do it or you cannot do it. And I think the people who sit back and try to wait till it's 100% perfect are the ones who struggle. I forgot what book I read it in, but they were talking about, I think it was Mentor to Millions. And what they were saying was most successful people wait until they have about a 70% of a plan, right? After that, they put it into action because there's nothing else you can predict. At that point, you have something that's viable that'll take you in the direction that you want to go. Will it get you to the destination? Probably not. But you're moving forward and you're not stagnant and stuck in one particular situation or at worst, not taking any action, right? When I remember reading or learning about Disney, and they were opening up in China, I think it was China or Japan, I'm not sure exactly, but they were out there in the East. And when they went out there, they opened up operations right away, just like they had done in Florida, just like they had done in Disney. And they didn't take into consideration some of the cultural differences and had to restructure some things. So, acting on a plan is first and foremost. When you're talking to CEOs or different people who are ready to take that next scale, right? What's some of the fears that they have or some of those hesitations that prevent them from taking action?
Well, it's always uncertainty. When you're stepping into, uncharted territories, everybody is, okay, is that going to work? How long is that going to take? There's always uncertainty. But again, there's uncertainty in everything that we do in life. So, and we still take action. So the first thing is uncertainty. And they need to know they always ask me, what are the chances that this kind of service or product is going to be successful? And I would like to share something. And this piece of information, it came from, there's the number one entrepreneurial program as far as college degree goes in the country is from a school in Massachusetts called Babson College, okay? Mm-hmm. They're very well known. You probably heard of them. Consistently, the number one entrepreneurial program, actually not only in the country, but in the world most of the time. Okay, so I was talking to the director of the accelerator, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. And she was telling me, Angel, 5 years before, so 10 years ago, it would take probably a few $100,000s for any technology, any startup to make a difference in the world. I'm talking about 5 years ago. Today, 5 years ago, only $15,000 to $20,000 was the amount of money that some startups had as a seed money to start disrupting the world. The point I'm trying to make is more and more often we see that the amount of money needed to make a difference in the world is lower and lower, is smaller and smaller. So what's the difference? The difference is that today there's so much technology out there that we can scale up any service or any product in the market like fast, like really, really, really fast. So again, going back to the same thing, taking perfect action now. You really don't need so much time or so much money. What you need to do is to make sure that you start proof testing your value proposition, your product or your service in the market as soon as possible. So you can start burning, those early stages, and you can start, perfecting your product and your service. And you realize that, and you eventually see, you see the future with a level of uncertainty which is much higher. Again, to your question, it's uncertainty, but how do we lower the level of uncertainty? It's just by taking action, by start connecting with the market and start exposing our value proposition in the market.
You have a ton of energy, and I love that because
Thank
you know
you.
when people come on the show, it's not always as exciting when the other person doesn't have energy, but that
Thank you.
fuel comes from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Why did you get into this particular space? I mean, it sounds like
Thank
you're
you.
ready to take on business and scale things at your own rate, and yet you took
Thank
a
you.
different approach. Why that approach? Why what you're doing? Why is it what you're doing gives you so much energy?
Well, probably because, well, number one, I would say first of all, because of my father, probably because my father is a super positive guy. I mean, back in Spain, he's right now 80 years old. He's going to be 81 this year, alive and kicking. He's still working on business. He's always been like that model for me, like always super positive. He's made a lot of, he's set up and grown a lot of businesses, both nationally and internationally. He's made a lot of mistakes, but you know what? He was always in that mood, always. And every time he was being asked, he was always, his first statement, he was always, I am so blessed that I have been able to help these hundreds of families, these hundreds of people with the families behind them. And that's the legacy. That's his legacy. So I think that this, flame that I have inside of me is because I really like to share my experience with people. And I was born to do this. I was born to, originally, both my mom and my dad come from very humble origins, really humble origins. Still my family has a ranch in the north of Spain. That's where we come from, the Rebel family, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't do many other things. So I always had this flame inside of me of leaving a legacy, of teaching others. I love teaching. I love training. I love sharing my experiences. That's why I'm so involved with the local community here in Dallas. I'm invited to, the startup weeks, startup weekends. I'm invited to be jury sometimes. I'm very involved with business incubators and accelerators here, just because I like to share. I like to share, and it's a decision. It's a decision. It's my decision if I wake up in the morning and I show up to the world in one way or another, and that's my decision. That's my option. That's who I am. It's a Friday evening, right? I have had so many calls this week. I have talked to so many people. I've had so many face-to-face meetings. But you know what? I am loving this interview, and I could be, and right now, if you told me, hey, Angel, you have to mentor, 20 people in a coaching call within 30 minutes, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to lie to the audience. How long ago did you offer me to be on your show?
True. It was yesterday evening. So Less than 24 hours.
Less than 24 hours. And I was super excited. I said, yes. You know why? Because I always say, why not? Why not? If there's a single person in your audience right now who can benefit from what I'm saying, oh my God, the day has paid off. The chance has paid off. The possibility that you guys have offered me has paid off.
What is the core? What is the core of the CEO Confidant? Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Your mission in the business to have that can help more and more entrepreneurs get to the level that they want to get to.
Thank you. For me, it's always been connecting the unconnected. And actually, I'm going to tie this to my nonprofit, connecting the unconnected. I've always, obviously, as you can imagine, I'm so grateful to God that He gave me this energy, this passion that I can, I have been able to help a lot of high-level executives throughout my life. That's a blessing. Probably this energy has helped me a lot. But this has only helped me enough as far as this helps me to make the world a better place. Okay? That's why, it reached a point in 2016 in which it was very clear to me that I had also, the reason why I had lived in Latin America for so many years and I had done business in Latin America for so many years is because I had to be exposed to those areas where so many underprivileged kids live. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in Latin America alone, in 2012, according to UNICEF numbers, 81 million kids live in poverty. 81 million kids. 22 million don't have drinking water in their house. 22. And that was 2012. Can you guess after COVID? Can you guess what happens? How many millions right now?
Significantly worse.
Exactly. So, and that means the total population, so that you have you have a frame of reference, the total population of kids in 2012 in Latin America was 170 million. 170 million. Okay, 170 million. So put that in perspective. So right now, probably it's going to be 90, maybe 100 million kids in Latin America who live in poverty. Yeah. So that's why, what's my mission? I've always feel that I keep on developing and helping so many high-level executives and established entrepreneurs, because at the end of the day, what I have to do is I have to be able to have so many stories, and I have to be able to connect all those high-level executives with those entrepreneurs that have still so much to learn. And I know that if it's not me, who's going to teach them entrepreneurship? Who's going to inspire them? Who is able to bring all those lessons I learn every single day with these so powerful CEOs? Who else is going to take them to those kids in need? So that was my answer.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful answer, because you're absolutely right. I mean, we look at what we see in poverty just right in front of us, right? When we drive down the freeway, when we're in our local communities. But the difference is, the poverty in the United States is much different than the poverty in almost any other country. It's just a different level. I remember being young, as a young kid, at my parents, and we would always go to church, and they would send us, to missionary things down the other side of the border, and you just have this awe that everything from the pair of shoes to the sweater that you have on to the meal that you had has such a different value to the people down there than it is to you. The things you take for granted, you don't even realize until you're, things like where you're crossing the border. When I remember coming back on the border and little kids, small 4 or 5-year-old children coming up barefoot, dirty, ragged clothes, just trying to sell something to make a living. And we don't quite understand the level of poverty because we're blessed to be in this country. But you're absolutely right. I want to ask you about the relationships that you're building with people as you're helping a lot of these entrepreneurs grow their business, as you're helping them scale and become multi-million-dollar companies. What value do you place, and how do you utilize the relationships that you're making?
Well, I think believe it or not, I was extremely shy kid, very shy, very shy. Most of I would say every single one of my classmates up to high school, they would not believe it's me talking right now. Honestly, I had to, really, I really had to go to college, and I had to start being involved in organizations, international organizations, and traveling. And so, I know that not everybody is so open and prone to have relationships with people. But again, you don't have to be, someone like me, so, extroverted like me. It's just I think that the most important thing is that you are yourself and you keep the relationship honest and humble. Honest and humble. And from that point, I like to use, gratitude, humility, and acceptance as 3 of my top values that I like to share this with my team all the time when we have our weekly meetings and when we have our one-on-ones. Gratitude, humility, and acceptance are 3 very big values for me. So I think that those values help you a lot to develop those relationships. And out from those relationships, it's like, as you know, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I have very, very large following and very active there. I post every single day, large high engagement from my audience. And it's the same thing when I start relationships with people in there that they don't know me of anything. I start from a very humble way. I'm not the guy that's going to send you 5 consecutive messages as soon as I say accept. I'm not that kind of guy. My connecting message has 1 sentence, only 1, and I don't send a second message.
You just wait.
Yeah, I just wait, and whenever it's good, and I think I have some value to offer to that person, as if it was you, then I say, hey, as I know that you do this, I think that you might be interested in having this information I just got from someone else. Again, partnering up with, giving the value that someone might need, and if they say I don't need it, that's okay, and that's fine. That's why a value download on people. I don't really believe in downloading things on people that they don't really need. So that's why I always keep my connections online as much human as possible. And when I left corporate America, I had like 800 connections. Right now, I have almost 27,000.
Well, let me ask you about that, because you said, when you were younger, you were an introvert, and now you're very extroverted. What was it that pushed you to that next ledge? There's so many people out there that are introverted, and they know they have to have better relationships. They know they need to pick up the phone and talk to people. They know they need to be more extroverted, but they can't get across that point of actually making those connections. What pushed you to that next level?
That's a great question, because probably I wasn't allowing myself to be myself. I was not standing on my own power. I thought that I had to fit in, and I wasn't socially enough. I wasn't enough. No, really. Because I thought that what I was standing up for wasn't enough to be just myself. So I had to be hiding, behind anything else or anybody else, until I realized that, oh my God, what I'm saying makes sense. So it was a gradual process. It wasn't, it wasn't just like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be extroverted. And so I was fascinated by something, which was, in my case, in college, because I told you I started to bloom in college, which was becoming or being the leader of an organization, but being like the leader, but the leader behind the scenes, right? Not the leader like showing up all the
Wizard
time.
of Oz.
So so at some point, I had no option but to be in front of a lot of people. And then suddenly, everything was going well, and I was, leading that organization in my college and everything. But there were issues. So I have to tell you that realizing that not everybody is going to like me actually helped me to be stronger. I realized that I didn't have to fit in. I realized that I have to be myself and always be myself. So I had a completely 100% certain place where I could go back and pull up the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because if you're pretending to be someone else, you don't have that place of safety. But when you're always yourself, when you're always standing on yourself, on your grounds, then you have that place of power. And I have to also tell you, I remember the most dramatic situation in my life was actually that I got married. My first marriage was in 1996, still in Spain. And I unfortunately didn't work out, and I only was married for 5 months.
Oh.
And I'm not gonna disclose the circumstances, but let's say it was like being backstabbed, big time. And I got married with my college sweetheart.
Oh, come on. Now you're leaving all the meat on the bone here. Now we gotta know what's going on.
No, but let me tell you, I remember as if it was now. I had to drive back. When I found out what my wife was doing, and I confronted her that night, and I will never forget that night, when I confronted her that night, and she told me yes, I remember taking my car the following morning and going and driving to where my parents lived. I remember that both my mom and dad were waiting me, they were living at the 6th floor, they were waiting for me, and I started crying like a baby on my mom's arms, at my mom's arms, saying,
can't believe it.
I don't know. How can my life collapse? What did I do wrong? I had the car, we had an apartment together, we had all those projects together, the perfect job, we had this beautiful house in the mountains to go to ski. Everything was perfect. But suddenly, boom,
so you thought.
Boom. And not even 1 year, 5 months, 6 months. I felt betrayed, you name it. I tried to save my marriage, and I immediately said, okay, let's go to a counselor. But unfortunately, the other party wasn't there. So I said, okay, so the rest of my life starts here today.
Yes.
And then, you know what? 1 year and a half later, I had already left Spain for good. And I have not been back to Spain, but to visit my family. Again, it's the realization of I have to be me. And I am strong because I don't have to fit in with anybody else. I have to be myself. And that's my foundation. That's my essence. And I will build up the rest of my life because of that. Had I not taken that decision, we would have never had this conversation, you and I, today.
You know that I want to say I love that story, but I kind of, it's not quite the right thing to say. But the fact that you accepted it at the end, right? The heartbreak, the pain, the agony, what you're going through, those are feelings that you're going to have. But at some point, no matter what happens in your life, good, bad, or indifferent, you have to accept that tomorrow the sun's going to rise. Tomorrow is another day, and every day you have that choice to make something happen. You can dwell in it, you can live in it, you can wallow in sorrow and feel sorry for yourself for as long as you can. But every day that happens is another day that you're not fulfilling whatever dream is that you want to achieve. You're hurting yourself by allowing yourself to live in that position for too long. Feel it, hurt it, learn from that mistake. But you need to make a choice and accept that it happened. Totally. Otherwise, you're never going to move forward.
I agree. And I have to say, this counselor that, we went together, with my ex-wife at that time, it was the same counselor that said, hey, okay, so she's not coming back. Can you please help me? Can you please help me go through this path? Can you please help me? And I have to tell you, there's certainty that this counselor told me, so these are the stages you're going to go through. A, B, C, D, and E. He told me, he explained those to me, and I understood them, and I said, okay, where am I now? And he told me, no, it's a good
question. It's a good question.
Yeah, of course. So you are here. Okay, typically, what do you see in your practice? How long is it going to take for me to get to the final, destination of this, of this, whatever it is, right? Of this journey. He said, well, it's up to you. I've seen people here, and I've seen people there, and I've seen people that will never recover from a divorce or from a separation. Okay, so I kept on going with him. I kept on having, again, I asked for help. God bless. That's something I obviously, in any facet in life, ask for help. Look for help. Always. There's always going to be someone that can help you. Always. Always. The only scarce resource in your life is time.
Yes.
Get over any situation, any challenge with the help of someone that's been there before. Do that. Don't hesitate. It doesn't matter. Money comes and goes. Do that. And oh my God, after 6 months of my separation, guess what? Guess who came after one of my, I just finished one of my swimming practices. I love swimming. Guess who came to say, I would like to come back together?
Who was going to say?
I'm not going to say, but you know the story, right? You know the story. And I said, unfortunately not. I don't want this to happen in the future when we already have children. I don't want that for my life.
Decision made. Imperfect decision. Don't know what the outcome was going to be, but you weren't going to do it again.
No.
Oh, man, Angel. That's, I love that, the whole idea of time scarcity, right? You only have so much time in your life. And yes, ladies and gents, you're going to feel uncomfortable when you're going to make a decision. You're not going to know the outcome. It's going to be scary. It's going to feel weird, but do it anyways. Do it anyways, because there's only two types of regret that you're going to have when you're older. And one of the biggest ones, the worst ones, is when you're 98 years old and you are incapable and you're out of time to have that regret to worry about. So take the action. You might make a mistake and it's okay. There's always a way to correct, but take that action. Angel, before we head out, let our audience know if they want to work with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. The first thing is, it's very easy. Send me an email. I have a team behind me. We all work together. We will always respond to you. My email is very easy. My email address is angel@angelribo.com. I'm going to spell it for you. ANGEL@ANGELRIB as in boy O.com. That's the easiest way. If you want to know, what I do, what I stand for, you can go to LinkedIn, Angel Ribo, the CEO, Confidant. And you will see me there every single day posting. I post a lot of personal stuff because I think it's important for everybody to know, what I think is important for me. And obviously, I would like to help you. And needless to say, thank you very much, guys, for being so kind with me and allowing me to be today on your show.
Hey, man, thank you for coming on last minute. Thank you for sharing, being vulnerable. I honestly believe that some of these stories that we have in our life, some of the worst stories in our life, make the greatest connections with people. So thank you very much for sharing some of your worst times with us. I connected with you. I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners that connected with the same type of story.
Thank
All
you.
right, ladies and gents, it is Friday, but we'll be back because Monday's going to come right around the corner. So that's all we got for you guys today. Have a great and safe weekend. Peace. And we're out.
Thank you for listening to the Business Bros Podcast. Are you looking to get more clients or to increase your income? Hernan, the business bro, can help you generate referrals through the power of podcasting. And James, the insurance bro with Pipeline Insurance, can help you effectively add insurance to your existing business. If you are ready to create wealth today and generational wealth for tomorrow, email businessbros@csfirst.com to schedule a free consultation or join the Business Bros Network, www.businessbros.com.
Welcome to the Inspiration Contagion podcast, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each episode spotlights and interviews one transformational leader, their stories, and their advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. If you are a visionary seeking to uplevel your leadership skills, then this is the podcast for you. I invite you today to spread inspiration like a contagion. Welcome to the Inspiration Contagion movement. Welcome to episode 48 of the Inspiration Contagion podcast. This week's episode is also being recorded for video, so if you'd prefer to watch, please check out the show notes for the YouTube link. This week's guest is Angel Rebo. Angel is known as the CEO Confidant. He is an influencer, international TV host, public speaker, CEO consultant, board member, and philanthropist. In the last 21 years, Angel has empowered more than 1,500 CEOs in 33 different countries. He was born near Barcelona and has lived in 8 countries and speaks 5 languages. Established entrepreneurs and corporate CEOs hire Angel to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. Angel sits on the board of the Evolutionary Business Council, an organization with more than 350 global transformational leaders, with a combined reach of well over 600 million people. Angel is based in Texas, and in early 2017, he launched his international foundation, Wisdom for Kids. And he has helped more than 1,000 underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using their local resources. With that, welcome, Angel.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me in your show. I love number 48. It's a great number.
It is a good number. And I feel like your name is really appropriate. That's amazing, the incredible impact you've had, especially in children's lives. So
thank you.
You're like, they're Angel. That's incredible.
Thank you. I have to say that probably my 3 kids have been a great school for me. Really, being really honest, I have a 20, a 12, and a 10, and they have really been, and they continue to be a great school for me. But thank you. Obviously, thank you very much for having me, for your nice words, and to everybody who's listening to us today, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was hoping you could just tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and your background.
Thank you. Yes, I think you've described very well what I do, so I'm going to say something different with your permission. So I consider myself someone who is here really to connect the unconnected. I think that there's a lot of people that have lost their connection, socially speaking, and I think that probably for the last, right now it's January. I think I know that this is going to air in March, so it's going to be probably now March when you listen to this. But it's been over a year already that a lot of people I really think that believe that they have lost the connection. They have lost the connection to friends, to themselves, to some relatives, to a lot of different people. So I consider myself a connector of the unconnected. That's why exposure has been always for me very important, not for the sake of, a lot of people know who I am. No, just because of what I do. And I think that your exposure is only as good as what you do with it. I always, thrive, and obviously this is a great place to be, Holly, thank you, to increase my exposure. But, as far as I'm able to use that exposure to connect the unconnected. So that's why, someone who had worked for so many large corporations, who helping them to accelerate the growth of their businesses, reaching out to all this, the top layer of those companies, and being able to connect them, my experience and my entrepreneurship, humbly, my entrepreneurship skills to help the most underprivileged. That's been a blessing. And why Latin America? Because I lived in Latin America for 10 years and I worked there for almost 15 years. And we're talking about just there, like 81 million kids that were in poverty there in 2012. So that's basically me. I think that connecting the unconnected is a very nice way I like to explain what I do in this world.
I love that. And I have to say personally, this past year, while face-to-face connection has been much lower, I have never felt more connected to people in the world than this past year. I have met through my podcast and through just LinkedIn, just connections, more people that I've become close friends with or collaborators with than I have in years or decades. But I like what you're saying. There are people that are very disconnected right now. They might not have access to technology, and that's extremely difficult to navigate during COVID. So I'm glad to hear that you're working with people to connect them.
Yes, thank you. And as you know, my work is done. I'm mostly on LinkedIn, and I'm on all social media outlets, but I'm there. And because I really like to link myself and my business and my purpose and my inspiration with people. And when I was talking to our volunteers in the field, our Wisdom for Kids volunteer, which is my international foundation, throughout this year, they were all saying the same thing. We can't see the kids. We can't see the kids. We've lost that possibility to be around them because obviously of all the restrictions that are now in place. And we can't wait to see them again. We can't wait to be there with them, to inspire them, to help them become entrepreneurs, to help them be better people in their lives, to be, these change makers in their communities. Which is at the end of the day, an entrepreneur is someone that really changes their community. And you very well said that now. We are really blessed because we have been able to increase our connections throughout this time, probably because we said, okay, so regardless of what's happening around us, that's what we stand up for. That's what we are here to do. And we're going to do it no matter what, and it's awesome because probably that's made many of us to bloom and to go for strategies that maybe we didn't think of before. So I think it's a great time that we're living.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a super interesting time to be alive. It's kind of like this big experiment that we're not really sure how it's going to end up, but that's the whole point. So Angel, I always like to ask everyone who comes on the show, what makes you such an inspirational leader? Or in other words, what's your secret sauce?
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I would say that my inspiration comes from really my essence, and it comes from what I do every single day, right? It comes from what I say to every single, podcast host, or what I say to my employees or to my family members every single day. I think that I have been blessed of having a great life and working internationally in so many countries and doing so many things. And I think that everything that I had to learn from all those cultures and from all the people I've been dealing with, behind all those 1,500 companies and business leaders, there's obviously a lot of teams of a lot of people. There's a lot of people in my own teams throughout my life that have helped me to do that. So I think that it's my experience in my life that has allowed me to be who I am, and being able to make decisions, important decisions in difficult times in my life. I think that everything has made me someone unique. But let me tell you something. I don't think that I'm more unique than anybody else that is listening to us. Maybe the only difference is that, I have taken action and you have taken action. My favorite mantra is take imperfect action now. Take imperfect action now. I think that the people listening to us right now, they already have inside of them that unique experience. They have had this unique life. They have done those unique things. And there's a lot of people out there that they need their inspiration. They need their experience. They need their expertise and their knowledge. It's up to them if they take action or not. So again, I think that we all can inspire someone. I always think that every time I'm on an interview, there's someone that is going to listen to this, conversation between Holly and myself, and we'll learn something. And just if there's only one person today that likes the message and likes what we're talking about, oh my God, that's amazing, because we've been able to change the life of that person forever. That's the beauty of having those conversations. And that's why I think that having conversations is so important. Let me add something that I just saw this morning on LinkedIn. As you know, the consumption of podcast content has increased dramatically since last year. Well, when as you said it very well, when this experiment started, right? So, and the headline was something like, podcast, is not the right way to make money. That was literally, and it was the number one news on LinkedIn this morning. I think it was this morning or yesterday. And I was thinking to myself, yes, but I think that you're missing the point here, which is, what about the inspiration? What about those lives that all these podcast hosts and shows, are being exposed to? All these people that are listening to those conversations, and they might take action after listening to all those conversations. So then the question is, how do you measure wealth? And I think that if we are able to contribute all of our, all the millions of guests and hosts in all the, podcast shows in the world, if we're able to contribute to changing this world somehow, oh my God, how much wealth it is, and it is going to be generated.
Yeah, that's really an interesting perspective. And I mean, I agree. I think it's difficult to monetize a podcast unless you're in the top, 50 or 100 of Apple podcasts, and that's very difficult to do. But I think podcasts are really powerful for movements and for helping people take action. So like you were saying earlier, there's the inspiration, and then the only difference between success or hitting that inspirational idea is the people that take action and the people that don't. So there's the inspiration coupled with the motivation, which is the movement and taking action towards accomplishing that goal. And so I think what podcasts do, especially ones with leadership and tangible things that people can do and stories that people can relate to, help us build that movement and help those people start to take action because they can see themselves in that story.
Exactly, and you don't know where that action is gonna go. I mean, again, if I had to count all the lives of people that both with my business and with my nonprofit we have touched, what are going to be the consequences? What is going to be the ripple effect, right? So I think that, again, we are a very materialistic society, and it's good. I mean, obviously there are millions of people that rely on we buying their products, and I understand it, and it's good. But at the same time, I think, how much is happiness worth? How much is inspiration worth? How much is a good message worth? How much is peace of mind worth? How many people don't really want to wake up in the morning? How many people, I mean, you've probably seen this. I mean, it's not in mainstream media, and I don't have anything against them, obviously, but how many people, I mean, what about the depressions? What about the suicide rates? What about all those mental health diseases that have increased so much for the last 12 to 14 months? Nobody's talking about them. And it's a reality. I really believe that there's a lot of people in need, both business and so professional and personal wise. And we are here to help them, and we are here to inspire them. I really think that there's some healing behind what we do every single day, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're describing too is, social wealth and having those connections, having that inspiration. I know for me, when I'm interviewing people, it's inspiring. It gives you kind of these new insights and new perspectives and provides a lot of value. So since you're describing how it's more than just tangible physical wealth and capital where you're buying physical things, how would you define success for yourself today, and how did you arrive at that definition?
Well, to be honest, for me, success is to be able to be excited and passionate, to wake up in the morning, to have a wonderful place of peace of mind and throughout the day, to be able to experience fully my life with my friends, with my coworkers, with my team, with my family members. This is for me wealth, to be honest, to have this absolute, peace of mind in which I can really thrive every single day without having to worry about anything. That's for me wealth, total wealth. I've made a lot of money throughout my life. I've had great jobs. I had, been able to close great deals, you name it, as millions of people in the world. But at the end of the day, nothing compares to this happiness. Nothing compares to being yourself and being able to do whatever you want. Right now, both you and me, we could be doing something else, but we chose to be here. We chose to be, an inspiration contagion. That's what we chose to do. And we do it really, because we really believe in the mission that we have behind us. And that's more important. So I'm able to do this because, I really believe I'm wealthy because I'm able to do this. I'm able to set up this appointment with you and have this conversation with you, and really being able to choose every single moment in my life to choose what I'm going to do with it, what I'm going to do with my time. That's real wealth for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess my follow-up question to that would be for people that might be listening and they're saying to themselves, great, but it kind of requires some of that actual cash wealth in order for me to have the freedom to choose and select how I spend my time. So I would share with them first, and then I'll have you respond. I find that it's really important when we don't have that external validation of, income. We haven't hit the, goal that we're trying to achieve. We haven't hit the next level in corporate America, whatever that next goal is. It's so important that we choose in the moment to be happy. We can choose to have a good perspective and enjoy the journey. But I also want to hear what you would say to people that are still struggling financially, and so they don't have as much freedom to make those choices.
Number one, I've been there. Okay, believe it or not, I've been there. I've been struggling financially myself. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I know a lot of people that have been struggling financially, a lot. And guess what? You always survive. You always thrive. You always eventually go back to a place of safety. So you have a choice. You have a choice right now. Okay, so keep on digging, keep on focusing on that you don't have, or focusing on what you already have, and focusing on those thoughts, those memories where you already were thriving and you were happy and you had everything that you wanted. Get really stuck on those thoughts as opposed to what you're feeling that could happen, what you are, fearing or fearful of what might happen in the future. Right? So the reality is that, there's something in this dimension that we live, whatever you want to call it, okay, that has our back. It's a reality, regardless of what we're going through right now, we will eventually thrive. We will eventually succeed. We will eventually be in the right place. So instead of thinking that the worst is going to happen and, you're going to lose your house and you will have to move out and you will lose your vehicles and you name it, why don't you think that everything is going to be all right? And everything is going to be all right because you've already been in many, many, many different instances in your life in which you are going to be all right. So, I myself believe that at some point, I don't believe that when we die, everything is done and terminated and there's nothing after that. I don't believe that. I personally think that we decided at some point of our existence to come back here. It was our choice. It was my choice to decide to come here. And you know what? I chose to come because there was something that I was going to leave, that it was going to be maybe not something that I really liked, but I was going to be able to thrive and to go through it. It doesn't matter. So I heard someone said one time that you are only the things that are thrown at you are only thrown at you because you are able to cope with them. Obviously, we always have free will to accept them or not, right? But we always can cope with them. So it's just, it's just an exercise. It's just an experiment, how we deal with them. But we have this choice. So my advice, if I may, to you would be, embrace that choice. Embrace that challenge and focus your energy completely of going out of that place where you are now. And you will, because you have always succeeded in doing it. Really, I know it's difficult. I know there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of uncertainty. Regardless, you will make it happen. You will succeed. You will really, really, really go to the other side of the tunnel that you might think that you are in right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a lot of clients this past year and from 2020 that had so many challenges personally, professionally, spiritually, mentally, like you name it. And I'm sure you have the same experience, Angel. And I just keep reminding them, like, okay, well, what are you learning right now during these challenges? And okay, cool. So from that lesson, how can you apply that to helping your customers? Because they're probably going through the same thing. And that's where the light bulb starts going off is, oh, well, wait a second, this isn't happening to me. It's probably happening for me, which is really difficult when you're in the middle of a challenge or an obstacle to see the silver lining or the lesson behind it. But it is really an important shift in perspective. And I also like the reminder of not focusing on the fear and not going down the should have, could have, what if train, and instead focusing on what you're grateful for today. Those are really, really great pointers.
Yes. And, obviously what's happening right now in the world is global, right? It's 7.5 billion people going through the same thing, right? At certain different levels of restrictions, different levels of, lifestyles. I mean, but it's happening globally. So you are one of the heroes. Literally, you're one of the heroes that have been given the chance to live this. And some people might say right now, oh my God, Angel is crazy. It's crazy. We are heroes and we're living this and, this virus and these vaccines and these restrictions and so many, business owners, shutting down their businesses and everything. Well, believe it or not, we are being given this. What do? You said it very well. It's happening for us. So this is an opportunity for us to think differently about how to deal with our lives, with our professional careers, and with our clients and with everybody around us. Really, this is a blessing. This is a blessing. It doesn't look like it's a blessing because again, I think that, and we haven't mentioned this today, but I think that we have to recover our power and our energy. Don't pay so much attention to what's going on around you. Don't go really, because if you want to be X number of hours in front of your TV set and listening to news or reading to news on social media, it's up to you. You can do it, but don't allow that to take the power, your personal power, away from you. It's you. Nobody should be taking that power away. And that power you can use for whatever you want in your life. You can still create wonderful things. You can still, try to focus on, those videos, those pictures, those photos from those trips, all those things that really inspire you and take you to this very nice place, mentally and intellectually. Do that instead. But again, recover your own power. Recover your own power. Don't allow anybody, nor any institution, nobody, to take that power away from you. It's extremely important. And it's still, of course, and that's one of the mistakes I made when I started my entrepreneurial career is ask for help. Ask for help. If you think that someone can help you because you are struggling, hey, there's nothing that's going to recover. It's going to give you back your time, the time lost. Have someone help you. Have someone help you in that journey. Someone from the outside that might be able to help you, to give you some clues. So you go back to a place where you feel much comfortable and you feel that you are thriving back again. Ask for help. We all have money. We are fearful of losing all of our money. Of course, we've been for years saving it. I'm there with you, but still, time doesn't come back. So use your time wisely and use your resources wisely to go back on track and use your time, wisely.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think a lot of people think that they're failures when they ask for support or they ask for help. And I know even a lot of business owners that have struggled from this past year, from the pandemic and from all of the shutdowns and the economic impacts. And there's so much shame when they come to you to ask for help. And so I also just want to remind people, if you're listening and you are in need of support or help, there is no shame in that. I mean, obviously you want to ask the right people. You want to find somebody you trust, somebody who is doing well in the area that you need help in, whether that's a mentor, a coach, a class, whatever that is. But be careful who you ask for help from, especially if you're feeling really shameful around doing that. Yeah.
I agree. And again, don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, you are so right on the shame thing. So right. But guess what? I think that since the very beginning in when we are kids, I think that guilt plays a key role. And, we're always told, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. So we are more like guilty for things than being praised for things that we do right. Unfortunately, it is what it is, just because our parents, just to say something, obviously I love to death my parents, but they want you to survive, right? They want you to be a kid that's going to make it to youth and to adulthood. I mean, I understand that, but in order to protect us, very often we are, negatively influenced, and for the good, for the good of us. But the point I'm trying to make is, the other day there was someone that was analyzing manipulation in advertising and media, and he ran a survey, and when he got basically the results of the survey, guilt was the number one instrument being used by advertisers and media to get their messages across. Again, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying what the people that reacted to that survey showed in the results of the survey. So it works. It works. So it works that, we fully understand that you might feel like this, asking for help. But again, think about your life in terms of time, and time is the most valuable and precious resource that you have and you will always have.
Yeah. Yeah. And your health is equally important. And, if you're not taking care of yourself and your health, then your time is even more limited. So I would advise you to invest wisely your time, resources, and health during this next 6 months to a year. So I also wanted to ask you, you've kind of shared a lot of inspiring stories, but is there a particular story of inspiration that you're known for?
Well, there's I have had in my life probably like two very deep, spiritual experiences that have made me make dramatic changes in my life, right? One was after reading a book which is called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield.
I love the cells. I feel the same way. That changed my life forever. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what I was really having chills right now when you were saying this, I'm just having chills again. So when I was reading that book, I said, oh my God, I should have read this book like when I was in elementary school. That's me. I mean, that's how I perceive the world. That's what really everything is about in this, whatever it is that we live in. So I remember I was living in the UK at that time, and they gave me this book. And I finished reading that book, and I was in a specific place. It was in a holiday resort in Cuba. The second in a villa, a very nice place, blah, 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 whatever. But when I finished reading that book, I turned the page and I had this incredible rush of energy for the first time in my life. And I didn't know what it was, but everything that I had read in that book, I mean, for the ones that haven't read it, it's about, a series of scrolls from the Amazonian forest of Peru, and, amazing things about those scrolls. And it's just amazing the way it's being explained. James Redfield is a genius. So when I finished reading that, I said, oh my God, I have to do something with my life. And I decided at that point, it was February, beginning of March in 2001, I had to move from Europe to Latin America. I went back to Europe, and all my bosses said, you're crazy. You want to go to Latin America? Really? You mean you want to go from London? Great position, great future, great career, great salary, everything. You want to go to the third world country? You're crazy. And I said, yes, why not? Why not? Oh my God, my life changed forever. And that was the first time. And again, it was a book. So again, books is something that I think that we have forgotten. Now that everybody, is trying to say, no, anything is justifiable, and you can find anything on any website, and that is supposed to be truth just because it's on a website. Go back to the books. Go back to reading books. Go back to reading like hardcover books, hard printed books, because they're going to inspire you. There's millions and millions of amazing books that can change your life. Again, looking for inspiration, which this show is about, Holly.
Oh my gosh, I could talk for days about the Celestine Prophecy. One of my favorite words is serendipity. And in the Celestine Prophecy, one of the first scrolls that they discover and they teach about through this story is coincidences, and how when we run across somebody a couple times or we experience deja vu or something's really serendipitous, a happy accident, it means something. It means we should be paying more attention to that. And so ever since I read that book, which I was in my like early 20s when I read that, if I run into somebody multiple times, the third time or second time I run into them, I'm like, hey, I think we're supposed to connect about something. Is there something you wanted to share with me? And every time I do that, there's some profound thing. And they're like, how did you know? It's incredible. It's like these simple things. And
totally.
yeah, that's one of the first books that I read that transformed my life and really defined a lot of things for me spiritually as well. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh yeah, and again, it's a fiction book, but with a very strong, solid message. And you know, there are more books out there, but this one, I mean, it's just the one. I remember in my childhood, maybe another one that I don't know if I will be able to translate the name in Spanish. It's from Richard Bach. You know Richard Bach? Into English. The name of is Johann Sebastian Siegel. That's the name of
I have read that.
Okay, good. You see?
Yeah.
And, well, let me tell you, by the way, to the audience, you know, Holly and I, it's the first time ever we speak just a few minutes before this show. So no wonder why we had to do this show together, right, Holly?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of serendipity. I feel like we could probably have like a whole podcast just on books to read, but anyways, I digress.
Yeah, that's another nice book. I mean, different obviously, but I mean, if I had to recommend one only book to anybody, it would be The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield.
Yeah, that's my top recommendation too. The interesting thing about it is sometimes something that is fictional, and I'm putting that on in air quotes for those of you that are listening, rings so true. Like the message behind it, you just cannot argue. And that might sound crazy to some people, but I don't know. There's just certain messages that I think they reach us at the core, at the energetic level, and we just know that they're true, and it transforms our life in some way. So that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
That's an inspiring story. So you identified as a storyteller leader, and I wanted to ask, you know, do you believe that using stories to inspire and lead is important?
I think it is, because if you basically bring up something which has happened around you, which is a reality and which involves other people, you know, which involves, you know, and other places, other circumstances. And I think that with everything that's going on in the world, another important aspect of our lives that I think we had terribly forgotten was to go back to our elders, was to go back to the grandparents, to the great-grandparents, and ask them for advice, really. You know, when there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of civilizations and cultures that they still not only value a lot what they have to say, but they also make it a purpose, like to daily or weekly sit around them, be with them, and listen to them. Not to put them in nursing homes or hospices and have them there until they die. No. Like be next to them to listen to stories. And that's the point I wanted to make. I remember in Spain, my family is originally from a place called north of Spain, close to the French border. And I remember when I was going to visit my grandparent, we're originally from a place in the country in the north of Spain, and he would always tell me stories. And, you know, I remember the story of his father going to a Benedictine monastery to learn. So he would literally, like, you know, walk and try to, by any means of transportation in the 1800s, go from this countryside area in the north of Spain to this Benedictine monastery just to learn certain things. Then he would tell me also the stories about, you know, this other member of the family that actually in the 1890 something, he actually went from Spain to Cuba to try to rescue Cuba from the attack of the Americans. So this war between Spain and the US in the last part of the 19th century. So all those things, how can you not? I mean, I'm still remembering them. I remember them, and you know, I think my grandfather died in 1980 something, 85 or 86. So I still remember those stories. And those stories are stories that doing something unconventional, doing something like I just wanted to do it because I thought that that would give me an additional knowledge, an additional edge, an additional wisdom that I needed in my life. Instead of being there comfortable in that area, they decided to go to these 2 different places in the world to achieve different goals. So the stories are powerful. Stories are powerful because you don't know what the story is going to end up. I have a great friend who has an incredible business. What she does is actually she gives different people the first statement, the first few words, and she's asking them to write a whole chapter with that initial sentence. So she just gives these people the initial sentence, and they have to finish the sentence, making up a story. They can talk about anything in 2,000 words. Just with the first few words, everybody explains a completely different story. Everybody. And then what she does, she's already working on this. She's already working on his first book. She publishes the book. So that's the power of 20 plus people that from the very first idea, they got inspired to come up with an incredible story, fictitious or reality, that it's going to inspire their readers. And again, we have to go back to stories.
Yeah.
It's something that we are so much missing.
Well, and I think that's why podcasting has become so popular, is because if you go back to caveman times, we had more long form dialogue. And because we're so disconnected from this experience of the pandemic, people are being drawn to the long form discussions, which is what podcasting is really about. And like you just mentioned too, books are just always inspiring. There's so much wisdom. I'm actually reading 8 books right now because
Cool.
They're kind of slow reads and they're in different aspects of my life. And so I'll absorb one chapter in one area. And then the next day I'm oh, I need to read on this. But books are so powerful, and they're powerful because they have stories and they teach us wisdom and they help us continue to grow as students in life. So I think that's why podcasting and books are hopefully making a comeback, is because we're missing that long form story element where we can connect to each other and rebuild that community element.
I totally agree. And I think that regardless of what our purpose in life is, or even if we don't know what our purpose in life is, I think that we play a role in the community. Even if we live in a small neighborhood and, we don't have that much contact with our neighbors, we are part of the community, and we choose every day what we do as far as the community goes. It's our decision. And, if you want to take action and you want to do something and you want to start an initiative, just go and do it. Don't wait for anybody to give you social approval. Just do whatever you think is right. Because again, I really believe that there's a lot of people in need right now, that many people we don't know that they are in need. There's a lot of people in need. So it's the perfect time to be contagious, not only with inspiration, but also with generosity. So just, and as you know, we have so many material things that we probably don't use, and we could give someone just to make them happy. Honestly, simple things can do so much to change our communities. And again, when I go to Latin America with my kids, I see that all the time. A simple, small book of 20 pages, a tale, in English, is just an amazing, community changer. Just because it inspires someone, because it allows them to see that, they're English, I can learn some basic English, words and lessons and expressions, and that can help me, make me understand something that is written in another book or magazine, or I hear in the news, whatever that is. So again, there's so many things that we can do today.
Yeah, there's a beautiful story about, I think it's a nonprofit. This is a book that I read a long time ago about pencils of promise. And so this young gentleman traveled the world and he started handing out pencils to people in impoverished areas. And these children were just so overcome by having a pencil, because it opened their world up, because they didn't have the ability to write anything. So simple things like that. But even further than the physical things you can give, for people that are listening and you've figured out a solution to something, So you've navigated a divorce, you've learned how to balance a budget, whatever that is, whatever your superhero power is, whatever your idea is, you not taking action on that is actually not helping probably hundreds to thousands of people around you. So instead of letting fear run your, agenda and not taking action because you're afraid you'll fail, think about all the people you could be helping transform their lives.
Exactly. And it's your decision, I remember one of the questions I asked myself before creating Wisdom for Kids was, if it's not me, who's going to do it? Who's going to be connecting this, underprivileged 81 million kids to the people that are totally connected and are part of the economy, and they are not? Who is going to do it? Who can do something about it? And the response was, well, probably me. So why not? Why not? Why not doing it now? So, that really helped me a lot. The why not is an expression I use a lot. So I think I like it a lot.
Well, and after the podcast, you'll have to remind me, because I have some goals around a nonprofit for children. And I know a few other people I've interviewed on the
Awesome.
podcast and met that are doing different things around nonprofits for children. So I think we should probably connect on that separately.
Absolutely.
Another question I wanted to ask you is, how do you mentor and teach and lead through stories? Can you share a couple examples?
Yes. So obviously I like to conduct myself with the people I serve through questions. I think questions are very powerful. I think questions allow you to put yourself and to put the people around you in a different place in their mind. I think that perception is reality, regardless of my efforts to change Holly's perception about something. Your perception is your reality, and my perception is my reality. And it's the same thing with my mentees, my coachees, and the people I help with my consulting. So I like to ask questions. And I think that most of the answers are inside of them, but I ask questions. So whenever I'm asking questions, and there's something that they say or they refer to that gives me the possibility to use one of the questions, one of the stories, one of the things I've lived in my life, then I use it as a part of the reality that already existed, that was already created, that was related to what that person wants to do or wished that he or she was doing today. So I think that, thank God I've been given the possibility to be able to make those connections while I'm talking to people. It's like when we are having this conversation, there's many different styles of podcast hosts, right? You have this tremendous ability to connect a lot of many different things and to connect it with your own experience and your own practice and everything. That's something that you do wisely and fast, right? So I'm sure that you do the same thing in your practice, and that's why you have so many clients. So I think that this is an ability that not everybody has, but we have to consistently ask questions, so we actually go inside that person and we really get to know that person genuinely in order to be able to help them. And it's not always, we don't always succeed. I'm sure that you have also, failures. You have failed with some clients. I have miserably failed with some clients as well. But, that was a very important learning lesson for me. And what did I do? I learned from that lesson and I made sure that wouldn't happen again, obviously. So again, I think that the best way to use the stories is to use them in the context that relate directly to those issues and to those challenges that the people you are working with are going through at that point in time. I think that's the best way, because unless you listen to them and you make what you do relatable to them, they're going to disconnect, disengage, and what is your role there? There's no point, right?
Yeah, it's really important, like you were just saying, to really understand your audience, whether that's one-to-one with a coaching situation, mentor situation, even a family member, or if you're writing a blog, knowing your audience and what they're experiencing right now. For business owners that are listening today and they're trying to upscale, up-level their leadership skills in this area, listen to your clients. What is the consistent theme that you're hearing? Write a blog on that, do a video posting on that, and share a story that might help them shift their perspective. Like you said, you can't force someone to shift their perspective, but you can use stories so that they can see themselves in that story and perhaps shift their perspective to a more positive standpoint versus fear-based.
Yes, and a good example is, for instance, I post on LinkedIn every single day, and you would say, well, you post on LinkedIn, maybe you post about business every single day. No way. Actually, I support. Obviously, I support every single podcast host that is, that is willing enough and good enough and generous enough with me to interview me. I also support a lot of authors with their books. I love to support them. Obviously, I support heavily my clients, but I always make this balance of business related posts with personal related posts. Because as you very well said, I have to talk to my audience and what they are going through. Probably one of the subject matters that I wrote the most last year, it wasn't about working remote. It wasn't about working from home. It was building bridges. In 2020, it was building bridges, and the second most frequent subject matter on my posts was give me a break. Give me a break. Those were the two most important things. Are they related to business? Well, obviously, who didn't want a break last year? You tell me. Who didn't want a break? I think I posted in a couple of months, I posted 5 times about giving me a break from different perspectives. Who doesn't need a break? Who hasn't thought at some point, I would love to wake up in the morning tomorrow and the news are totally different. They're totally changed. Something happened in the world, in the split of a second, in the snap of a finger, something happened that, everything is going back to normal, right? So that's why I think that it's very important, to your point, to listen to your audience, to be very specific about your audience, and to talk to them consistently.
Well, and I love that you're also recognizing, because you're in the business space, how important it is to talk to your audience about the personal side, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And so business owners are people. And guess what? This past year, they had a lot of personal challenges. So I love that you were talking to them about give me a break, because yes, let's be real. I would love if anybody's listening to this that did not need a break in 2021 and 2020, please send me an email, because I'd love to hear your story, because that's just hard for me to fathom at this point. I found myself last year needing a lot of breaks, and it wasn't that I wasn't doing a lot. In fact, I felt like I was doing more to be of service to people that needed things, and they were free. And then also to pivot so much in my business because of everything that happened economically. And that's exhausting. So it's really, really important, if you're listening and you're feeling burnt out, take a break. Take an hour vacation, a 1-day vacation, a weekend where you unplug and stop obsessing about what's wrong in your business, what's not going right, and just be with your family and be grateful. I guarantee when you come back, you're going to have new ideas and probably a lot more energy to tackle the problem.
Yes, we all need a break. The ones that haven't had a break yet, we all need a break. Take a break. The world will carry on without you. So, again, don't worry about the future and again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, right? So you choose what you do with your mind and where you focus your energy. You choose to do that. And I hope that, you had a little bit more of inspiration to probably look at somewhere else and focus your energy on doing something else. It's really your choice, even though it looks that it's not sometimes.
Yeah. And to really bring that home for people, I'm curious, is there an example from this past year working with a client, you don't have to share names or specifics, of how you mentored them through almost getting to a breakdown and taking a break?
It's difficult to allow someone to get to that place where, they were close to a breakdown, so I knew that things were going to happen. The most traumatic moment in my life was probably my first divorce. So I could teach probably someone how to go over a divorce from a male's perspective. Okay. Because again, everybody has their own story, but this is important for me, because I think that when there is a loss of any kind, and last year, I think that loss is a good example, loss of all your habits, laws of all the things you used to do, the places you used to visit, the people you used to visit, everything. I think that knowing about the different stages that you go through to get acquainted with the laws, actually, I think that helped me a lot. So that's why when I saw this happening, and it's not the first economic crisis that I was going through. I mean, I lived very intensely 2001 and 2008, 2009, very intensely. So from a business perspective, I was already doing things that I knew that I had to do in order to overcome this for my clients. And I think that one important thing that I rediscovered with my clients this year was to have these tough conversations. That's something that I learned from someone, which is called the secret contract. So I believe that we all have something called secret contracts, which is that you expect from people, and you expect from everybody who is related to you at some point, you expect from them specific things, but they also expect from you specific things. And those conversations have never happened. So you expect things from your partner, from your kids, from your parents, from your friends, from your business partners, from your clients, and the same thing the other way around. But guess what? Those expectations have never been substantiated, right, on a conversation. You've never had those conversations. So in this moment, in which in that moment last year, in which our minds were going so fast, spinning, spinning, I think that having those conversations and say, okay, calm down, let's collect ourselves, and let's talk about this. So what are the options? What's going to happen? What might happen? What we don't know that might happen. Okay, so there's all these things being said. We're being told all those things, but what is really going to happen? What is uncertain? What is certain? And then help them navigate in that environment of certainty versus uncertainty. And again, okay, we're losing specific things, but it's also the time to gain other things, to bridge the gap, to do other things that probably we didn't have time to do before. Okay, so in this reset that's going on, what else can we do that we were not able to do before? So I think that, answering to your question, I was able, or I had to focus or refocus my clients' goals, objectives, minds into what was really important for them, so I could help them better see what the path, what the journey was going to be moving forward. And I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah. And that's a great reminder is when we have these secret contracts and these expectations, oftentimes we are left disappointed and frustrated and in fear because that contract has been broken. And in our mind, it's this sacred contract that we've never spoken out loud. So I imagine a lot of people, especially people that are sheltering in place at home with kids, and maybe their relationship was already a little rocky. This is making those difficult conversations come to the surface faster. I think it's the same thing with business owners that had to pivot a lot to try to survive, or maybe they didn't make it. So yeah, a lot of those difficult conversations are happening, but like you were kind of alluding to, that's also allowing people to see what's most important, which is really great and really insightful so that they can realign their life and their business and where they're headed in this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree. And again, it's our choice. It's our choice to decide what we want to do. We have, honestly, I think that we have an incredible, ahead of us, an incredible time to do incredible things, to pivot, as you said, to reinvent ourselves, to decide what we want to do with our lives. That was a good opportunity for us to decide what we wanted to do, and keep on helping, keep on doing things for the rest of the world, keep on giving back, and it's gonna come back to you. So I don't know. I mean, I like to see the life, from a positive perspective, and I think that we all have this incredible power inside of us, and we can be inspiring everybody every day.
absolutely. Well, this has been great. We're actually going to move on to the lightning round of questions. I am pretty sure I know the answer to your first question. What's your favorite book?
Yeah, it's The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. Thank you.
Excellent. What networking or community group do you love the most?
Well, I like very much the Evolutionary Business Council, the one that you mentioned originally, because it's a group of transformational leaders. and we actually have a huge outreach to reach the world, to change the way that the world is doing business today.
Excellent. What's the best piece of advice you could share with others today?
Take imperfect action now.
Excellent. And if you could share one message with the entire world, what would that be?
You are an incredible human being, and with an unstoppable, capacity to change the world. Just you inside of you right now. So just please be aware of this and take action, whatever it is. Take an action, even if it's a small, to start, living the rest of your life today.
Love that. And what's the legacy you wish to leave behind?
Well, a series of examples of, how can we live this world? How can we actually take action in this world every single day and use that energy that we were given when we were born to do good things? As if I'm able to live, good examples of good people that are doing good in their businesses and in their lives, in the millions, I think that will be a very nice legacy.
I love that. All right. So Angel, this has been great. Angel's been really generous. He's offering a free gift to our listeners. He has a free 15-minute business consultation. To get that, just go to his LinkedIn page, and that will be in the show notes, the link for that. And you can use the calendar link there to book some time with him.
Absolutely.
And I don't know about you, but he's pretty inspiring. He's got some pretty good information, so you should check that out. I will also have a link to his website and other social media handles as well in the show notes. Anything else you'd like to add, Angel?
No, just thank you very much for allowing me to be here. Thank you to everybody listening to us today. And if I may just share the email address with everybody, you said very well that I am on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn every single day. If you want to reach out to me directly, just send me an email. It's very easy. It's angel@angelrebo.com. Rebo is my last name, spelled like R-I-B as in boy O. Again, angel@angelrebo.com. And I will be very, very glad to respond to your email. I respond, either my team or myself, we will respond to your email. And again, thank you for the opportunity to serve you today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Angel. This has been a wonderful interview.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you.
So how can inspiration contagion help you today? There are 3 ways. Number 1, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on the podcast listener of your choice so that you get newly released weekly interviews with transformational leaders from all around the world. They're going to provide practical, actionable tips for you that you can take and implement today. Number 2, if you have a burning problem or you're having some challenges, but you're not really sure where to start, so go ahead and visit hollyjeanjackson.com/events and find an event online that suits your needs so you can begin exploring and learning more today. Number 3, if you have a specific issue or challenge you're facing today, a burning issue that you need to resolve right now. Perhaps you're trying to build your guilt-free business. Perhaps you're trying to build an online product, or you're facing some challenges with technology in your business. You're trying to scale to that next level. Regardless of what the challenge is, go to hollyjeanjackson.com and then visit the services section and schedule an appointment. I'd love to offer my listeners a complimentary coaching call so we can figure out and get to the bottom of your problem and explore if coaching is a good fit for you. Those are the 3 ways Inspiration Contagion can help you today. Remember, nothing changes without action, so be sure to take action today. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. What is one thing you can do in this moment that will inspire someone? Without action, nothing changes. Be the change you wish to see in the world. If this show truly inspired you, we ask that you share it through your network. Help us spread the light and inspiration in the world. I look forward to seeing you here next week.
Okay, Angel, we are now live, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Facebook group. We're going to be obviously putting this onto our podcast startup chats.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm stoked that you're here. I think I've up a little bit early. I think you were just saying before we went live, I made you put you through hell. So I do apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You know, I'm so connected all the time, but it's true that, you know, you try to plan ahead a little bit what's going to happen in the day, but if it doesn't happen, it's okay, and you will know how throughout the conversation today. Or you will know why.
Well, let's kick this off because, you know, I'm so excited to talk about this whole topic of, you know, startups and that journey and that challenge that we all face. And I think wherever we can sort of get those pearls of wisdom or advice or help or a little bit of inspiration is always going to be a good thing and always help. So, but before we maybe sort of dive into what we're going to focus on, which is that whole, you know, pivoting in times of crisis, I think that's a really interesting sort of topic actually, because I've certainly done that in various sort of degrees, and you know, we can chat about that. So yeah, it'd be interesting seeing your perspective. But before we do, would you mind sort of introducing yourself to the audience, and just giving a bit of a background about, you know, who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is 𝐭𝐢𝐬, and I'm in Dallas, Texas, although I was born close to Barcelona in Spain. Basically
one of my favorite cities, by the way.
Oh, look
Barcelona.
at that.
Love it.
Okay, I thought that you were going to say Dallas, Texas.
I've never been. I'd love to go.
I'd love to come to visit. There's lots of great things here happening. So, but anyway, you know, obviously I love Barcelona too. Basically, both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs, they hire me to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. The reason why I helped, you know, I use internationalization strategies to accelerate the growth of their companies is because throughout my life, for the last 25 years, I have held more than 1,500 CEOs in 33 different countries. And I was able to do that because actually, let me tell you a secret now that you are actually in the UK. One of the reasons why I'm able to do this is because mom and dad, they put me through an English, an English academy when I was in school, when I was in elementary school. And outside school, I was learning English. And I remember that the summer of 1982, I spent the whole summer in Scarborough, North Yorkshire in the UK, learning English. And I decided I'm not going to speak a word of Spanish for a whole month. And I requested that company to put me actually, obviously, with an English family, but I don't want to have contact with any Spaniard throughout the entire month. So I had actually a Swedish student doing the same thing, learning English in the UK as the same as me. And I only had contact with Swedish people and people from other places, but not with the Spaniards. And that's why I was able to speak English. And then, you know, I started my international career and everything. Something which is also really important is that, you know, as I lived in Latin America for 10 years, my heart and soul is with the kids in need in Latin America. And I started my nonprofit. It's called Wisdom for Kids. I did that 3 years ago. I'm the co-founder and president of Wisdom for Kids. And we help underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using the local resources. That's in a nutshell, you know, who I am and what I do in my life, Ben.
No, that sounds amazing. You sound like you've been doing a lot and have a lot on your plate right now. So
absolutely,
it's always fascinating. And to be honest with you, I'd love to sort of dive more into all of those little, you know, all those elements and those niches to understand more about them. That'd be amazing. But maybe that's for another day.
Absolutely. We can be, I mean, obviously, thank you very much for having me, Ben, here. And thank you, everybody listening to us today. I can be with you guys anytime. You just tell me 5 minutes before, and I'll promise to be there. Okay, Ben? Pinky promise.
and that never happened, of course.
Pinky promise.
Pinky. My son does that to me. He makes me do pinky promises.
You see? Of course, I told you just 5 minutes, as opposed to the 1 minute today. It's 5 minutes. I mean, this is like 5 times more time ahead. It's wonderful.
You'll have to return the favor for me. You'll have to do the same for me one day.
No. Of course, obviously, I'm giving Ben a hard time just because he's this kind of guy that he takes you know, jokes and being hard on him as lightly as I do. So it's a pleasure to be with someone in life that doesn't take everything judgmentally, which we unfortunately tend to do. And you know, that's actually one of the challenges of the startup entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? You've got to be so adaptable and level-headed, quite cool and calm under pressure, and not letting things not getting too hyped or too upset either way, because it's a journey. It's not a sprint, isn't it? So you've got to keep an eye on that bigger picture. So and keep moving forward. That's the key. Keep moving forward. So let's dive into the whole sort of topic of pivoting. As we know, sometimes, a startup and an established business has to pivot. I mean, we've seen a lot of established businesses have to pivot in this time of, the COVID-19 and all the rest of it, particularly when, a business stream suddenly was closed off. A lot of brands had to sort of pivot towards more direct consumer sales rather than B2B sales. But certainly within that pre-launch phase and starting a startup, that can happen too. I know it's actually happened to us recently with one of our product launches. And without going into that, but I think it's a challenge that we face at various levels. And I guess thinking within that pre-launch phase, one of my thinkings is it sometimes best to pivot before you launch if it's abundantly clear that you should, or sometimes is it better just to launch, test the market, and then pivot?
That's a great question. And actually, you probably remember that probably it was like already 10 years ago that this guy invented this business canvas that you actually, it was a collaborative work developed here in the north of the country, in the US, by someone in the MIT, I think it was. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because we tend to forget that the buck, right, the dollar, the money starts with sales. And we are so hard on ourselves, going back to what I was saying about being judgmental, we are so hard on ourselves that we try to do everything else look perfect before we even talk to potential clients. Obviously, everybody in the startup world talks about the minimum viable product or minimum viable service, all these kind of things. But in reality, the only thing, let's say you and I will have an idea today, and it's an amazing idea, which could be actually easy for us to have a great idea today, and we say, we're going to launch it. You know what we need to launch it? Okay, we commit that between now and 24 hours, you talk to 5 potential clients in the UK, you talk to 5 potential clients in Texas. We have 10, let's say only 50% of them show up. We already have market feedback. So I think I'm responding to your question. I'm a big proponent of, if you eventually have to launch something into the market, why don't you start talking to the market? And it doesn't have to be perfect. You have friends, you have former colleagues, you have relatives, you have neighbors, you name it. You go to a store, you go to a coffee shop, you talk to the guy which is serving you, the bartender. You can even ask that person for their feedback about what you want to launch. So to your question, my main business mantra is take imperfect action now. That's me. That's my clients. Take imperfect action now. So definitely, I would reach out to the market first, and then I would start strategizing about what's the best way I can launch or pre-launch my product or my service or my company or my venture. But definitely, I have seen so many people wasting so many hours, so many days, so many months perfecting something before even talking to someone in the market to see if that would fly or not. So that's definitely my response to that.
No, it's very true. I think within a good pre-launch phase, speaking to the audience is absolutely critical, because like you said, too much time can be wasted on tech development, and your whole bubble of one, an opinion of one is always dangerous, as they say. So I think there's no doubt. But it's interesting, as talking about the pivoting challenges. We faced a technical challenge, for example, and I was thinking about, I wonder if you could sort of categorize those problems, whether they're it's the challenge of or the wanting to pivot because of technical challenges, and you realize that initial angle is closed off to you. For example, you need to feed in, you need something with you're relying on a third party, and then suddenly they cut off their service, and your whole product roadmap was and the USP was around this collaboration. So you're relying on a third party, and then suddenly they pull the rug from under your wheels. when that happens, clearly you need to pivot because you can't really launch to market without it. But I think one of the mistakes, and that's something that's we've recently found. So we're having to do a slight pivots in terms of our launch and one of our products that we're releasing, in terms of just realigning some of those core elements. Interestingly, we had and it's still ongoing, is another product launch which started way back when, and that was my thing. And I think I made those exact same mistakes that you talk about, and you shouldn't make, which is, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. Just one more thing. Can we just do this feature? And then suddenly it becomes like a monster. And I think that has been a huge frustration for me, certainly, is not getting something out of the door. So it's interesting, isn't it? The pivoting can come for different reasons. But
you see what? I mean, this is how I typically don't curse on podcast interviews, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do it today. But we get so sidetracked by perfection, and you just described the perfection sidetrack. That you wanted to do this additional feature, this additional thing that would make this offer like magnificent, like extraordinary, it's spectacular, right? But suddenly you get so into the trenches of that thing, But in reality, guess what? And I've seen that last year. I saw that with many technologies and many providers saying, we're not sure if we're going to be around for a long time. But guess what? The difference between the technologies that I kept on working with or the others that don't, because maybe they were scaling down, downsizing, whatever, is the attitude of the customer service people, the support people. So even if their product wasn't perfect, I stuck with them because their customer service, the attitude of the support team was flawless. They were really genuine human beings that were there to serve me. When someone is really acting from within, being really present and saying, hey, this is what we have. This is what we got. We know that you are going through challenges. We are also going through challenges. I'm going to spend probably, it's going to take for me 3-4 times longer to respond to your ticket, but I'm still going to be here, and I apologize ahead of time. So setting up expectations, Ben, is so important. It's so important. I'd rather work with someone who has a not so, let's say, mature technology, or not such a comprehensive technology or service, but their relationship with me is so human, is so empathetic, because I really value that, and I'm going to connect with that person much more in depth.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because ultimately we start talking about the whole branding element of a business, of a startup, of an entity. What are the core values of that business? How does it want to interact and engage with its customers and clients on board? And I think we then start sort of diving into that world of the community, building a community, and whether that's, I guess, having a really good call center or team that respond to tickets and problems, or even I've seen really interesting communities built up on like Facebook groups where startups are really engaged with their communities. And I think having that authenticity and that dialogue, that's the key, isn't it? Like you touched on, it's that dialogue to say, hey, Angel, we're working on it. This is our tech roadmap. This is what we work on. We're struggling. We're trying to get things off the ground. We're bootstrapping it, or whatever it is. And then you can feel, more of a passion towards that brand and company, and see the face behind it.
Yeah.
And on its own, actually, if we think about it, that's such a strong, powerful part of planning in any pre-launch phase, but also post-launch, because obviously that's when you've got to deliver effectively. And follow through, and that's always challenging.
Absolutely. And I can give you even another example. Last year, there's this technology that they love to use. My team is an expert on using that. It's called Zapier, which allows you to automatize so many different systems. Zapier takes webhooks from here and there and blah blah blah, integrates so many. So I use a specific dashboard with my clients, and guess what? This guy said they're not cheap, but this guy said, we're going to give you 3 to 6 months for free, just because we know you're suffering. And their support system is great. Okay, so they gave me 6 months for free subscription last year, just for the sake of it. Just for the sake of it, because I was a small business owner, I qualified, blah, blah, blah. Just 3-4 months ago, a competitor came up to the market at a fraction of their price. And they offer you so many more actions per month, which is the currency that Zapier uses. So like a fraction of the price and offering you much more for that fraction of the price. But guess what? I'm not going to change from Zapier. I'm just giving you an example, right? I'm not going to change because they stood behind me, with me all the way. They provided me extraordinary service. They even said, we know cash flow is an issue for you. We're going to support you. So, oh my God, do you think that they will ever leave Zapier as a technology provider for my team and myself? Of course not. The branding, they have, my concept about these guys, what they're going to do for me whenever my business grows more and more and more, and I need them more and more and more, they will be there for me all the way. It's amazing. Exactly. It's about the brand. It's amazing. Do you agree?
100%. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess if you've got that strong narrative, that strong brand, that's good, that story that people buy into, if you do have to pivot, then it's much easier to bring them with you, because I guess you can again have that honesty and say, hey, listen, we're having to realign our business model. We're having to do this. Come with us. And when that pivoting moment does come, I'm guessing that's a lot easier.
Yeah, it is. It is, because again, you trust them. You have already developed that relationship. It's all about expectations, Ben. I mean, really setting up the right expectations is so important at all levels. At all levels, we tend to. There's a concept I use both when I coach personally the CEOs and when I work with in business, when I'm doing business consulting, which is a secret contract. And think about it. This concept of secret contract is just brilliant. With every single person that you have a relationship with, Ben, and everybody listening to us, with every person that you have a relationship, there's a lot of things that you've never shared with that person, but you expect from them. You've never spoken about those things, but you expect from these people a certain things. And the other way around. You've never talked about that with them, or they never talked about that with you, but they expect things from you. And that even happens with your business, with your family, with your partner, with your life partner, with your kids, with your father, mother, with your siblings. There's always those things that you expect from them, but you've probably never asked them or talked with them about them. That's why setting expectations is so important in the journey of an entrepreneur, of a startup CEO. Setting the right expectations with everybody, with all your stakeholders, is so important. And just with that, you are building, just with that very simple thing of setting the right expectations, you're starting to build a very strong brand. You will never be in denial. You will never sweep things under the rug, ever. You will always be there because you are very clear on the expectations. That's so important. And it's so easy to do. But in reality, we don't do it.
No, it's interesting, and I think you hit the nail on the head, because it also is very similar to just old ways of doing business well. We're talking about digital businesses, online businesses, and all the rest, but it's about doing business well, and it's always been the case. Whenever you're dealing with a client, setting expectations, whether it's timeframes or what you can achieve by when, and being realistic with that rather than over promising. If you can set a realistic expectations and actually over deliver and things like that, it's just simple things, isn't it? But I think what we need to what we need to start thinking about, I guess, as startup founders and all the rest of it, is how we set those expectations in a digital format to the masses, if that makes sense. How do we communicate that? And that might be simple as just, I guess, creating a Facebook group about your business and start talking about it, and then setting those expectations. It's interesting, actually. I've started to sort of observe the technology side of. By the way, I don't want this to get into some crypto sort of video here, because there's plenty of those out there. But it's interesting the technologies behind it, and some of those guys who are leading those technologies. and the way that they build community and the way that they engage and constantly keep their audience who are interested updated. The one that springs to mind, if I'm honest, is probably I'm going to forget his name. The Cardano founder, Charles Hodgkinson, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. And he's constantly sort of talking about Cardano and what they're doing and all the rest of it. And that's when you just think about it for, I guess, your own business or your own startup it's interesting lessons that you can possibly take for yourself post-launch, but equally, I think pre-launch and start getting a bit of hype behind it before you even go live potentially. When should a business, I guess, not pivot? That's an interesting question. Can businesses pivot too soon?
I think that the market speaks. I think that the most important thing is to see if the market is actually moving, is shifting, if the market is asking for different things or not, if the market is still willing to pay for the same products and services or not. That's the question. It's not about us. It's about the market. It's about, is there a new market being created? Is there a new community being created they're going to want specific things? So that's the question. I think that you have to really put the thermometer in the market. You have to have those conversations, those imperfect conversations with your potential clients and see, hey, will you keep on paying for this? Do you still feel the value? Do you still feel the value in this kind of products? Or right now, what's happening now? What do you think is going to help you go to the next level? How many times, honestly, think about this, Ben. How many times before you sell to a client, you actually tell them this: I know I'm going to be part of your problem when you place the PO with me, because you're going to put X amount of money on my pocket and you will have nothing in return. My commitment to you is that I will make as much as I can to return on your investment. But how many times you have told that your clients, I care so much, I know that I'm going to be your problem right now when you place the purchase order, right? And I also care, I really care about how you are going to recover that investment. These conversations are very uncommon and conventional because they are uncomfortable, because we think, oh, maybe someone doesn't place the PO, right? It's very similar to, as entrepreneurs, when we start niching, and we start thinking of what's the right way to position, what's the fame, what's that sentence, that pitch sentence, that statement that we use when we're trying to craft it, that we're always between this 30,000 level feed, copywriting, or onto the ground level copywriting, right? We're always trying to bring as many people as possible to our world so they can buy, or we niche down so much so that we really speak clearly to someone who are really the people that we want to serve, right? We also move in that space. You see, it's the exact same thing. Obviously, I think we have to be extremely precise, because we really want to serve someone, and we want to serve this someone really, really well, right? So to your question, again, definitely there's a moment where you have to decide if it's the right moment to pivot, or if to pivot or not. But again, it's all about who you are serving. Let me tell you an example. What could you say has happened last year with 7.5 billion people? If there is one factor that had all 7.5 billion at some point, it's fear. Okay. I'm not talking about politics. Okay. I'm just saying what it is. There's never been more fear in the planet like last year. Okay. And maybe it continues this year for whatever reason. Okay. I have been building bridges. You are a public figure. I'm a public figure. We're here to build bridges. We're not here to fracture the society. We're here to actually help everybody come together, get together, and make this world a better place.
100%.
That's why you're doing what you're doing.
100%.
That's what I'm doing. Exactly. Right. So, but still, if there's fear, think how you can help everybody. If you know that everybody's going to be in fear, why don't you talk to your market and you double check that that's a reality, and double check if that fear is going to move the needle for what they need. They may need some additional personal support. They might need, support for specific areas in their business, right? Is that fear going to affect the existing clients or not? Is it going to affect will you have to deliver your product or your service in a different way? Again, it's all about the market. It's all about the people, how they feel. It's all about human beings. It's all about human beings, how they feel inside. They're going to make the purchase decision. The buyer, decision has it changed? Are there different criteria? The purchasing criteria of our clients, has it changed? The decision process, has it changed? It's all these kind of things that you have to think about before you decide to pivot or not.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's an interesting point. Has it changed? I mean, ultimately, their buying decision might not have changed, but the way that they buy it may have changed. They might not be able to go into the shop like they used to. So, how can you deliver that product or service in a format that they can still access? Because they may well still want it. We've seen that, haven't we, with gyms? Gyms have got, people can't go to physical gyms in the UK. I'm not sure what it's like in America, but so people are having to think about how can I deliver that course online effectively, because those people still want that. And you're 100% right. And I think this goes from pre-launch and carries on continuously forever, is knowing your audience. You touched on that, and listening to your audience. But it's really easy to say that. Well, people think, oh, my audience is everybody. And I think it's so important. And you touched on it. You've got to really drill down on who you want to help. And know that market inside out, and that can change. But absolutely. I think have a focus where it is right now. Going back to the is there a right time to pivot? It's interesting because as I completely agree with everything you're saying, but part of me also wonders whether you can be too soon. You can be an innovator, and you could be creating something that the market's never seen. So people don't necessarily sometimes know that what you have is going to help them. And that's an interesting challenge. We're seeing a lot of this actually in various sort of technologies. Things are coming out all the time. But you might not get that initial traction.
I agree. But it all comes down to, as you know, people buy from you what they want, but you know what they need, right? I mean, you define a transformation path, right? You define the transformation path. You talk to them with your pitch. You talk to them to find them where they are, and then you describe a transformation path, and you are selling them the transformation and the final destination of that transformation, right?
You got to tell a good story, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. But again, I think that we make a decision as entrepreneurs. We make a decision every single day of what we talk about and who we talk about. At the end of the day, if you are able to describe that transformation, they might not know, they know what they want, but they don't know what they need. So you're still able to sell to them what they need if you are able to position it as what they want. Okay, so obviously there's this very famous book that you've probably read, The Crossing the Chasm, about technology adoption. Very old book already, like 20 years, 30 years old.
I'll be honest, I'm a really bad reader. I'm honestly, I'm so
okay. No problem. So
I'd love to be a big reader. I really would.
It's okay.
Crossing.
It's okay. Crossing the chasm. So it basically states, when a technology is ready to go to the majority, to not only to the early adopters, so to the majority, right? So it talks about that. So yeah, exactly. So regardless, probably in the beginning, your price point will be at a level that it still justifies the profitability that you need in the company. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's always the same thing. Are you able to position what your clients want from your pitch so that you give them what they want? They buy what they want, but you give them what they need because you are the expert. You are the subject matter expert. You're giving them what they need because you know more about that, because you are the expert. And obviously expertise is one of the most important things when you're pivoting, right? I mean, are there areas of expertise that you probably have not pitched enough to your audience? That's an area of, as you know, of innovation and being ahead of the curve and being creative and all these kind of things, and I think that also as entrepreneurs, when we are in startups, I think that we all the time we see new things. We see, we are ahead of the curve. We really see those innovations because when we push so hard and we do so many things for so hard, because our life goes on it, right? So eventually we discover many other things and new ideas and new horizons open up for us. And, and it is what it is, and so I mean, if you are an awakening of entrepreneur, there's consistently reasons and ways for you to be innovative and to start trying those innovations into the market.
No, definitely. I think like any good entrepreneur, they're constantly looking at the world in a different way. I call it my invisible radar. It's this. If anyone's watching the video, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. But if you listen to the podcast, you won't. But basically, it's like up there constantly, and it's just going, and then it's all hones on something, and then suddenly it's like, oh wow, this is like, and your brain starts going 100 miles an hour, and then your wife tells you to calm down and stop being silly and get focused on what you're doing.
Exactly,
because it's always challenging, isn't it? It's getting pulled too far in too many different directions.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Talking about, again, getting back to the pivoting. I think when somebody needs to pivot, having a good personal brand makes it a lot easier to pivot. And I think sometimes lots of business owners don't really focus on their personal brands. What's your sort of thoughts around that?
Well, I think there's two. This is a two-way street, right? Because you want to have a very strong personal brand, but at the same time, you don't want to be the main constraint on your business, right? So you have to be careful, okay? Because you obviously want to have a whole, system, people that will support you in delivering all that, okay? So the personal brand is very important, but also make sure that in the delivery of your products and services, you are not a constraint. So that's the number one thing. Do I believe in having a very strong personal brand? Absolutely. And it's much easier to build than what people think. I'm blessed enough to have been invited to your podcast, Ben, today, and I have probably 3 or 4 more today. I'm there's a lot of people reaching out to me. I'm really extremely blessed that happens. But it's relatively easy just to give. I mean, I'm giving just some nuggets that people might like or might not, but it's being present. It's spending 30 minutes, 45 minutes, one hour, adding value to someone's audience, and by doing this, you are actually building my brand. I'm building my brand right now, thanks to you. I'm grateful to you and to your audience. And again, people think that branding is this big, massive monster that we've never seen their face, right? But it's so difficult, and only large corporations can actually build your brands. Not at all. Just answering an email on the chat on LinkedIn, you're building your brand. Let me give you another example.
100%.
I mean, just when I say happy birthday to someone on LinkedIn, I do it in a different way. I tell you, people remember me because of the way I give them the happy birthday. And it's so simple. And the same thing when they change positions in their companies. I do it in a different way. Guess what? You don't need anything. If you start things small and then you want to scale up in the future, guess what? You can start doing this right now. Be yourself. Don't be afraid of yourself. It's very true what Tony Robbins says in his events, which is, what we are fearful of as human beings is of our potential, is of how powerful we are. It's not of our flaws. It's not that we will not be able to deliver. It's of our potential, of our power. We're really powerful. We all have this expertise inside of us that nobody else will be able to deliver just because of the experience we have had in our lives. You have had your experience, Ben. You've gone through several, successes and failures. You've learned a lot of lessons. Everybody has had their own journey, and that journey is of value to someone else. That's why everybody can really become an entrepreneur if they really want to. That value, that intrinsic, unique value of anybody out there can really help other people, to overcome their challenges in their personal lives or in their business life. It is what it is. It's by definition.
100%. And also what I love about it is it gives, several things. It gives a face behind the business. So you have that real sort of personal element. And I think that's the future for business, having personality. But also I think as an individual, we all know we have many layers. We have many interests. whereas a business is obviously clearly focused on one area, possibly with a very focused audience. But with a personal brand, people, you're able to express more of your interests. You're able to express more of your fascinations and your other hobbies and other, businesses. So I think certainly if you do need to pivot, it's much easier to do so. And because people believe and buy into you, not that particular product or service. So I think that's something very, very interesting. So in terms of sort of top tips or advice you could possibly pass on to any budding, startup founder, what would that be?
Well, I said it before briefly, but it's definitely, I think that's, honestly, I think this is at least 50% of the success, of the secret to success for any entrepreneur right now, which is take imperfect action now. Take imperfect action now. Expose yourself. Whatever you want to do, start doing it right now, immediately. Start talking to potential clients, to potential partners, to potential collaborators, to potential allies, immediately. Take imperfect action now. Don't wait. There's never going to be a perfect time for you to become an entrepreneur. Never. So why don't you start doing it now? You don't really need much. Honestly, you don't really need much. Really. I mean,
what did they say? Yesterday's the worst day, today's the best day, or something like that. I probably got that completely wrong. No, yesterday was the best day. Today, I can't remember. I'm just probably making something up.
No, that's okay. But it's a matter of, hey, take imperfect action now. And then as soon as you start making steps, taking those steps, as soon as you start doing that, you will start seeing the forest. You will start seeing this works, it doesn't work, this could work, this couldn't. You start seeing the rest of it. But you have to start making those steps. You know what I mean? So
definitely.
Exactly. So be humble enough to do that.
Definitely. And just out of interest, on a side note, Angel, what's the sort of whole startup scene like in Dallas, and in your hometown? What's business like there?
Well, I have to say, first of all, it has changed and improved a lot. Dallas used not to be the startup hub that it is today. I've been very involved with the startup community here. Actually, last year, it's so funny. Last year, I gave 2 different webinars to the startup community here, and the title of both webinars were Pivoting in Times of Crisis. both of them. So there's a very strong community of startups here, very strong. That particular accelerator I gave the webinars to, it's called The Deck, but there's many accelerators. The mayor of Dallas himself, he has said many times on the stage, he wants to become a very stronghold, important stronghold of the startup community in the country. And there's a lot of, angel investors community and family offices. And this, it's really a great place to be an entrepreneur and to start up your business. I'm very involved with the Startup Week here and with the Startup Weekends. I've been the jury for a few Startup Weekends as well. So, it's a great place to be, definitely. I would encourage anybody that would like to maybe try and come to the US. This is a great place to be.
Fantastic. And am I right in thinking a lot of people are moving out from California and Silicon Valley to Dallas? Totally. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. Actually, large corporations, even before the pandemic started large corporations from California started to relocate here. And right now it's massive. It's massive, the amount of people that are moving from California and many other states to Dallas, to Texas, North Texas, because Dallas is strategically positioned. You don't think about it, but Texas is a huge state. We will never run out of space. That's the beauty. We will never run out of space. And we don't have a state income tax, which is great. And also, the property prices are pretty reasonable. So yeah, it's a great place to be. Ben, you should start making your luggage here. Come on.
Well, I've got a wife and 2 kids to sort of bring in tow. So
great school systems here. Great school system.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, well, you know what? We can have this conversation aside, Ben.
Well, it'd be great one day, definitely. I think in my dream one day, I really want to make sure I get to meet, like you in the real world, and all my guests, because I think it's it's very easy for us to just do it virtually, and that's fantastic. But I think if we can actually try and do that, like down the pub and have a beer, that's where, relationships can get built and go further. And I think, digital and what we can do now is amazing. But I think if we can get that, carry on with that social element into the real world, I think it gets even more powerful. Yeah, no, definitely. So one day I will get over to Texas, and come and say hello. So no doubt, I'd love to come and say hello.
Awesome. Please do.
Brilliant. Well, Andrew, listen, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. Fascinating to chat about pivoting and some of the challenges and all the rest of it. And you take care and have a great day.
And you too. Thank you very much. And if I may, just to tell people how they can find me.
Absolutely.
If I may. Okay, so again, my name is 𝐿_RIBO. Last name is R-I-B as in boy O. R-I-B as in boy O. B as in boy O. The easiest way to reach out to me is to send me an email to angel as in heaven, angel@angelribo.com. Okay. Thank you very much. Really, Ben, it's been a pleasure to be here. And thank you everybody that has been listening and watching to us today.
100%. I'll put all your links in all the show notes and all the rest.
How kind of you. Thank you.
Awesome. Brilliant.
Welcome in, folks, to another great episode of I've Got a Theory. I'm your host, 𝐭𝐤𝐻𝐿𝐿, and I've got my new friend on, 𝐿_RIBO, the CEO Confidant.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody listening to us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So, I'm going to spring this on you. I forgot to mention it.
Hey guys, this is 𝐭𝐻𝐻 with I've Got a Theory, and I wanted to share a new podcast that I discovered recently called Signal. It's �SYGNYL. And it's super interesting. We're going to play a trailer at the end of our episode here. And it's just launched. It's a participatory arts podcast, which invites listeners to explore the hidden world all around them. So there's going to be little challenges. It's collaborative. You can print out worksheets. And I've been following along raptly because it's super cool. It's subtle, and you wouldn't know how into it you can get. And there's already 2 episodes out so far, so I'm rolling with it. SYGNYL, Signal.com.
Angel, talk to me. You've had an interesting life. You've lived in a lot of different places. You speak a lot of different languages. You get to be an influencer, and you get to interact with high-level people all over the world. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing, and then we'll dive into your theory.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes. So, I happen to be so lucky that although both of my parents were originally from a very humble origin, they asked me, they actually put me through intense foreign language education, both French and English in the beginning. So that really set my life up for, going out to the world. I remember in the 90s living in Spain. I'm originally from Barcelona, and that started me my career. And I've been since then doing the same thing, which is basically helping both CEOs and C-level executives and established entrepreneurs bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. Expansion as in business development, using business development strategies as the excuse for accelerating the growth of their businesses, and exposure as of using specific, tactics and strategies to, marketing strategies to go to those new markets. And very honestly, once you start that journey, you realize that there's not so many differences between going internationally or even going, 2 states more north here in the Union. So everything kind of adds up.
Wow, what an incredible experience. So as a result, you've seen and experienced and had conversations with people, and you've learned a lot of things yourself along the way. But what I want to get to is what kind of triggered this shift to your current career versus what you were doing before. Let's talk about that, because that's kind of where this goes to.
So I was working for large corporations since the 90s up until 2016. And what made me change is actually something that happened at the end or in the beginning of 2015, when it was on a Saturday morning. It was 8 a.m. I was getting up. I felt extremely remorseful because again, I was going back home to DFW from Mexico City on a Saturday as opposed to going on a Friday. When you have so much work that you compromise again your family, your kids, your wife, because of responsibility of being in charge of certain side of the business for a large corporation. So I felt so remorseful. I got up. I remember still exactly the hotel in Mexico City, what it was. I remember the exact room. I remember when I went to the shower to have the shower that morning, that as soon as the water started to touch my skin, I immediately felt like a rush of energy. I cannot explain it. It's like a dramatic, like goosebumps on all my body. And I started to see all those flashes, all those images of things that I had been doing, for the last 15 years while I was working with Latin American businesses for the entire continent of Latin America, that I was in touch with these very high level executives. And every time I was going to visit them on those manufacturing plants in the outskirts of the large cities, I would be meeting with these very impoverished, underprivileged kids that would come to me. If you've been in Latin America, you will probably resonate with this, which is those kids coming to you saying, hey, would you buy some candy with me? Would you buy some sandwiches? Would you allow me to keep your car safe? Can we wash your car while you are inside the manufacturing plant? So all those things came to me, and the message was like, those things are connected, Angel. Those two worlds are connected, and you are definitely someone that can connect those two worlds, and you can make a better place. And, I remember literally falling on my knees inside the bathtub, literally crying like a baby. I've never been
So have you ever had an experience like that before that physically overcame you?
Not as strong as this one. I had a similar one.
Anything happened the prior day or the prior week that led up to that, or that kind of primed you for that, or did it come spontaneously?
I would say I was exhausted. I was, when there's nothing else. I mean, I remember waking up so exhausted. Like I had worked so hard that previous week, so hard, like really literally. I mean, I think I remember, what I remember is that I had a lot of late dinners. It's very common in Latin America to have like working breakfasts, late dinners, lunches,
Until late at the night. Yep.
Exactly. So, I mean, I eventually, every single day that week, I had worked long hours, and it was totally like with no energy. But it's funny how I kind of had to hit rock bottom in order to have that happen to me.
That's a common story, right? For sure. Yeah. Okay.
It's funny. Oh, okay. I didn't know. So, but it's exactly what happened, and I remember being very sensitive for the rest of the day. I remember that the gentleman that used to drive me around in Mexico City, I remember that he came, and that day I told him, hey, park your car, come with me, we're going to have breakfast together. His name is Martin, right? And I started talking with him. I said, it's going to sound very weird. I don't want to be afraid of the story, because we wouldn't talk business or personal life that much, but I started telling him about what had happened. I remember again going into tears over breakfast. So the entire day, it was in that zone in which almost anything would remind me of my earlier experience that day.
Uh-huh. So was there an actual insight that came through, or is it just more a feeling? Did you make any new decisions at that point?
I did. So actually, Jess, that was February, March, 2015, 2016. Actually, my last day in corporate America was the last day of February. So because I said, if I don't do it, who's gonna do it? If not me, who? If not me, who? Who is more ready to go all over the continent? That I know so many places, I've been in so many places. I know every single culture in the continent. Who more than me, besides knowing or identifying those impoverished communities, who else knows really the high level people that might help you bridge this gap between the super wealthy and the super underprivileged?
Wow. Okay. So now what? So what are you doing? How's this taking place?
So basically, I started my nonprofit. I reached out with a friend of mine who brought his father. Interestingly enough, I had no idea, but I reached out to my friend and I told him, hey, I just had that experience. I want to do this. Would you like to come with me? He said, yes, but I think that I should bring my father. Why would you bring your father? And he goes, listen, you didn't know this, but I'm going to tell you, we've been in touch for so long, but probably you don't remember that my father was actually the professor of the largest university in Mexico City that teaches education to teachers, literally to teachers. So he had his father, my friend's father, had these thousands of connections with thousands of teachers, not only in Mexico, but all over the continent that he had developed. So immediately we had a channel,
you had a big network. Yeah, you had a big network of people.
Exactly. And not only that, this gentleman, his father, had also written more than 75, 76 textbooks that are still today being used. So immediately we started talking, and he got 2 PhD students to work on what is today our workshop.
So what's the name of this organization? How can we find
Wisdom
it?
for Kids.
Wisdom for Kids.
Exactly.
Awesome.
You can find it at wisdomforkids.today.
Today. Okay. And where does this work? Where do you work? Who do you help? How many people have you helped? What are you doing? What's your specific mission?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, as you can imagine, with COVID, we had to stop our activities. But so basically, we started mid-2018. We have helped more than 1,000 families already. We started with Mexico. Obviously, we are nonprofit, and we are funded with donations and with the donations of the founders, right? And so basically, we started identifying different types of communities in Mexico. We've been in different areas. We have split the territory depending on the kind of community. We've learned really, really early on, we learned that depending on if it's an indigenous community, a rural community, or a suburban community, the needs are different, the kids are different, and the levels of poverty are different, right? So
yes.
So basically, we started doing that, like piloting, proof testing our workshop to make sure that our workshop was going to make a difference in these kids' lives. And don't expect that this workshop is something like whiteboard and to become an entrepreneur you have to do this. No, we really meet the kids where they are. We focus on, it's a very experiential workshop. It's like dancing, jumping up and down. It's like playing. It's meditating with the kids. These kids have never meditated before. It's the first time ever that we meditate, and we obviously focus a lot on compassion, on acceptance, and on self-esteem. As you can imagine, kids living in this underprivileged world, they are going through a lot. We don't necessarily find out what they're going through, but we want to make sure that since the very early on the experience in the contact connection with Wisdom for Kids, we start inspiring them and we start showing them that the world is open to possibilities and not closed.
How long are these workshops, and what's the desired outcome?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, the desired outcome is, number one, to change their lives so that they get back home, whatever that home is, and whatever the structure of the home, and if it's functional or non-functional, it doesn't matter. But it's a place where they will get our booklet, right? And that booklet will be the anchor to what they did with us. So the first thing is they have something to hook onto for the rest of their life. That's number one. The second one is to identify, the second goal is to identify who of those kids that we just had a workshop with, which of these kids could be the right entrepreneurs for the future, because not everybody, has, let's say, the character to become an entrepreneur. So, I mean, in a workshop, we are literally four people, if not five, literally volunteers, really like screening, obviously without telling anybody. I mean, only telling the community leaders and the parents eventually, but just we are there, making sure that we have a really nice experience together, but also identifying who are the ones that they can become entrepreneurs. The ones that they might have an idea and they are so enthusiastic that they will take action after our workshop. So that's the step number one. That works. The step number two is then engaging with their parents, with the community leaders or their tutors, because obviously sometimes there's no parents available, and then making sure that they follow through. That we talk with them, because regardless of what we think the kids could do, sometimes the parents, might be or might not be willing to help their kids do something else, right? Become entrepreneurs.
Right.
Depending on the area that we go. I mean, if we go to a suburban area, it could be, parents working on large manufacturing plants or working for the government. If we go to indigenous communities, there will probably be, working on sugarcane fields or coffee fields. So depending on where we go, then the next step and the conversation we have with the parents or tutors of those kids is different.
So this is a kind of you have to have a lot of human capital to be able to to be and have your reach and influence in all these different places. So you must have a lot of people working at this organization, at least when it was running in its heyday before COVID, to be able to make these workshops, find the talent, keep engaged with them, and then keep them moving.
Yes, that is right. So that's why when we go to a specific community, we spend an entire week there and we develop relationships with really anybody. I mean, everybody in those communities know that we are there or we were there. Yeah. And it's funny because we never tell anybody that we are going there, besides like the community leaders, you know what I mean? So we don't ask for permission to anybody but the community leaders, the ones that as soon as we tell them we would like to do that, how much is it? That's the first question. How much is it? And then we say, no, it's for free. Why for free? No, just because that's our mission in life. It's to help kids do this. And then they immediately say, well, okay, there's two things here. We're not going to tell anybody because we know that these kids will never get this in their entire lives. These kids will never have the opportunity to receive this kind of, let's say, inspiration or workshop. So immediately we establish a very intimate relationship with the community leaders because they really want us to be there to do that for their kids, because it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity kind of thing. They really feel like that.
So, so Angela, this is great. Now, I guess the question is like, you're associated now with the person that teaches the teachers, right? The kind of the teacher university. What's it take to implement this kind of curriculum or these kind of coursework into regular education for kids across the country, across the all the areas that you want to cover?
Well, that's a great question. I wish I had an answer for you. My mom is a teacher. She's still alive in Spain. My sister is a teacher. I have a couple of nieces who are teachers. So I know that getting into let's say the syllabus, right? Getting into the programs is another story. That means lobbying. That means doing many other things. So I don't see that being like, I wish everybody involved in designing the programs on a countrywide, in this case in Mexico or in any other places in Latin America, would be open to have these discussions. Meanwhile, we consider ourselves complementary. Yeah. We consider ourselves that besides what they're already receiving, the kids that they're already receiving, the education that they're already receiving, we are providing them with something else which is unique and that will open their eyes and their avenues for their future. So is it necessary? Yes. Should that be included in the normal scheme of things, normal structure of programs? Absolutely should. Is it doable? It is, but we believe that will happen as soon as we go from 1,000 to 10,000 or to 100,000.
So you need some kind of critical mass. You need some bigger scale.
Exactly.
Start getting some attention.
In order to have this demand come from the bottom.
Well, so you're doing this in Mexico, but I would argue that the same issue and the same problem occurs here in the United States.
That's a great question. Exactly. Actually, when you have to be humble with everything that happens around you. I remember one day, one guy on LinkedIn publicly said, "You are such a hypocritical something." I don't remember the exact words, but why are you going to Latin America when you live in Texas and you could be doing that in your backyard?
Yeah. And what's your response? What do you think?
I allowed that thought to sink in, right? Yeah. And I said, I'm open to that. You tell me when. I told him, you tell me where and when, I'll be there. And we'll start that pilot in your area. You tell me when I have to go and I'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true because, just recently another organization reached out to me to help providing some short video and interviews on financial literacy targeted at young people, young millennials, late teenagers, early 20s, because they don't teach that in the United States. It's crazy that they'll give you a credit card at 18 years old. They'll let you vote at 18 years old. They'll let you do all these things, but they don't teach you how to read a credit report. They don't teach you basic finances. They don't teach you what it takes to buy a house or what it takes to get a car loan and what that means for you financially and how to budget properly. And those are some things that you would think would make sense to put into the curriculum of a high schooler. It wouldn't even take that long, right? It wouldn't even take that long. 1, 2, 3, 5 days max to teach all the basic financial literacy skills that you need to not make big mistakes throughout the rest of your life, racking up student loan debt, racking up credit card debt, knowing that there are opportunities. Because, I like watching Shark Tank, and I don't like the fact that so many people think that their idea of being an entrepreneur is limited to being on Shark Tank, right? You got to make some gadget that's made out of plastic and hope you can sell it for millions of dollars. And that's your best way out of whatever rat race that you might be in. That's not the case, right? That's not the case.
I agree. And I'm very well connected here in the, entrepreneurs startup, environment here with the Dallas Startup Week, the Dallas Weekends, and the Startup Weekends and these kind of things. And I talk to entrepreneurs very, very often, and startups very often, and I couldn't agree more. The reality is that in general, startups and startup employees are not fully aware of the financial consequences, the financial impact, the financial implications of their business decisions. They are not. Yeah. So it's not only a problem of, is there a market, or is my product going to be good or bad? It's a matter of every single decision that they make since day one, when they start with their concept, going to Shark Tank, right? Starting with their concept, are they fully aware that every single decision that they make has an implication? And that, have they been funded or not? It doesn't matter. The initial, seed capital that they have, are they going to use it wisely, taking into consideration the financial implications of their decisions? The reality is not. It's like the elephant in the room, Hanish. It's the elephant in the room. It's even in corporations. Nobody really wants to talk about financial, obviously the CFOs and everybody in the financial department, but there are a lot of, there are many discussions inside corporations that if they really were able to see their organizations from a set of financial statements, from the eyes of financial statements, things would be completely different. So to your point, I'm very involved here in the school in the school district with my kids as well. And I couldn't agree more. There should be a mandatory, since early on, very early on, in elementary schools about, do's and don'ts, just if it's that simple, do's and don'ts of your financial education, of your financial life. That would be enough.
Yeah. And it's tough because I feel like, and I don't know, this is the conspiracy theorist in me. I feel like there's like a concerted effort to keep a large majority of the people financially illiterate. So they make those mistakes. So they rack up the debt. So they're held to basically financial bondage to these creditors that they owe money to, whether it's student loans or credit cards, because that's a business model in the United States, versus people that have parents that are more financial literate that will pass on that literacy to their children, but that's typically upper middle class or better only. So if you're lower middle class or less fortunate, you're not getting those kind of lessons to teach you how to do debt properly, to teach you about passive income, to teach you about finances. And so this gets skewed, and the problem gets exacerbated. It's worse and worse over time, because the rich people with their rich kids continue to get richer, and poor people continue to make the same mistakes and not get out of this hole that they've dug themselves in. And so I hate that that's the case. When you would think that the rising tide should lift all ships as countries get richer, but as you're seeing, and I'm sure you know this, income inequality across the world is only getting worse. Rich people are getting richer, poor people are getting poorer, and that divide just keeps getting bigger.
Absolutely. I agree. And let me take this one step forward, which is, we're talking about financial literacy, right? But what other aspects of our education are taking us to the wrong place? So just, again, you mentioned conspiracy theories, but okay, so last year, just 1 year ago, we were in a completely different place. You and I would have even maybe a different conversation, right?
Yep.
Let's say, let's agree on the world has changed completely, and people are right now in a different place that compared to where they were last year. So
correct.
If we just gave everybody the ability to identify how and where they are being manipulated, that. So why is what I'm doing today? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Are we being raised with this critical mindset of, I don't take the face value of anything?
Right.
I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to keep myself in my self-power, and I will do whatever it takes to have my own opinion. and then listen to both sides or the 3 sides or the 5 sides, it doesn't matter, and then make a decision.
Right.
I think that should be that critical thinking. It should be, and obviously, well, with finances, it's so obvious, because what is the debt of this country? How many trillions, Anish? How many trillions? How much per American?
No, they're numbers that don't even make sense. And you're exactly right. I mean, teaching the critical thinking would be the foundation of all of this type of education, right? Question everything, make sure that you understand, make sure you're looking at different viewpoints before you come to conclusions, and do some research, right? Kind of teaching people how to learn is what it takes, because you and I understand this, and we agree that we don't know everything, and we're happy to learn more when we come across something that we don't understand. And I would never claim to be an expert or a master at anything, because I know there's always someone better than me, but I'll claim to be good at some stuff, right? But teaching people how to critically think is the foundation of this, and some people don't. And now we're in an era where it's hard to believe anything. It's hard to believe anything, right? You don't know what's being told to you is true or not. What's being told to you is being manipulated or not. What's the purpose? And as we see, millions of Americans are manipulated in different ways fairly easily, either through social media or through, what's called called doom scrolling, right? You find something bad, and then you go down this rabbit hole, and all of a sudden you start believing that everything is exactly like that, because now you've been fed this information that's been programmed by these online software companies to keep you interested and engaged on that website or that platform, in whatever rabbit hole you've gone down.
And this is not even a conspiracy theory.
No,
I mean, this is proven.
This is known.
I mean,
that's known.
Exactly. This is known. I mean, you go and, the Social Dilemma movie, or there's another one which is old already, but it's funny how old movies right now, suddenly they are all so like right on, bang on. There's one,
and it's incredible they're not being censored. It's incredible they're not being censored, because then when you watch it, you're like, aha, I thought something was happening. Now this just somewhat confirmed it.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, it's critical thinking. It's like, and you never know, to be open. You are obviously, you very well understand the power of a conversation, right? Because the power of a conversation is just, you never know the amount of possibilities and opportunities they're going to bring to you, to your life, to your business, right? So this is the power of, this is the real power of people. That's why we have to be together. That's why we have to talk to each other without, obviously being respectful, but, talk to each other and be open to listen. I remember that last year, for instance, I was really in fear in the beginning of what's happening in the world, right, with the virus. And I was thinking, oh my God, what's going on? I don't know. Okay, so first thing, boost my immune system. That's the first thing. And then try to understand what's going on. And I remember that what opened my eyes was a 90-year-old medical doctor who is in a nursing home in Orlando, near Orlando, in Florida, saying, like, he was like extremely thin, like almost like dying, but he was saying so many amazing things that I just believe what this guy was saying, because he had nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
He had nothing to lose, and he said everybody should do this. You should start thinking about the power of seawater. What happens with seawater when you use seawater? You actually should read this document. You should go to the website of this guy. You should talk to this UC Berkeley professor. And I did everything that this gentleman, like almost dying, told me. And I said, oh my God, there's so much out there that we're never told. We have to do our own research. And that's the thinking that we should give our kids. And if you are in doubt, follow the buck.
Yeah.
Where does the buck stop? Where does the dollar stop? That's it.
That's always the answer for, why things are bad. but you mentioned earlier, one of my main reasons for doing this show is to create awareness, is to share ideas that you might not come across typically, and is to expand ideas and the breadth of availability of all the things that are possible, and just have a discussion about it. And so, as we discussed, I think our key takeaway from this is understanding that you should critical think about stuff. Don't just take someone else's word. Don't just take anyone else's ideas and say, yep, that's it. That's code. That's Bible. That's not necessarily the case. Dig in and make sure you understand the other viewpoints and critical think. And that's a great takeaway from our time together on the show, I think.
Absolutely. And let me finish with an anecdote.
Okay.
When we go, there's a special, very, very dear to our hearts community that we go with Wisdom for Kids. And we always ask the kids, what would you like to be? What profession would you like to have when you grow up? And we go to an area that is actually governed literally by the drug cartels, but we still go there and we teach the kids and we help the kids. So from time to time, someone says, I would like to be a drug lord. Okay, so imagine everybody says, I would like to be a police officer, I would like to be a nurse, a doctor, you name it. Sometimes kids say, I would like to be a drug lord.
Yeah.
And obviously our answer is not, that's the wrong thing. No, because we are in that position in which we understand that his brain or her brain frame of reference is the things that he sees every single day.
Of course.
So
that's the same thing that happens in inner cities in the United States or in meth communities in rural areas. They see the successful people. And of course you want to be like that successful person. Exactly. So obviously from a place of compassion, of understanding, we say, okay, all right. So we understand it. And then we open our eyes and, but we already have heard this many times, but we never judge the kid. Yeah, and of course, because that's what they know. That's their construct. That's what they've built up. But I think you could take that and say, that's great. And then figure out why, and then dig into that and then see if there's a better way to reach their goals. Exactly. So at the same level, this is exactly what's happening in the schools in the world. In all the schools in the world, we have this frame of reference and we are raised not to look outside this frame of reference. Yes. This framework in which we live, right? Right. That's why, going back to my story, I'm so blessed that, mom and dad taught me foreign languages. And eventually I was pushed myself to go to so many countries and do so many things in so many places, because I was able to have those many points of view in which, even if it's, no, you cannot, you should jump into those kids when they say that. No, not at all. Not at all. This is their life. So you have to understand it and then you have a conversation and see where they're going. Right. So you just can be an inspiration for them. That's awesome. Angel, hey, thank you so much for spending some time and talking to me. I really wish the best of success for especially your charity that you're doing, the Wisdom for Kids today. Right. Please let me know when that gets back up and running, because I'd love to get involved somehow. And I think it's a great, worthwhile cause that you're doing. I wish we could do it on a global scale, but hopefully a few people listen to this and start getting inspired to do their own things in their own communities. Absolutely. We all can do this if we want to. It's a matter of willpower. That's it. Of course it is. Yeah. And we don't have to hit rock bottom in the shower in a hotel in Dallas to do that. Exactly. We don't. You don't have to do that, but that's okay. It helps. Well, thank you for joining me. Please like, comment, subscribe to the show for I've Got a Theory, and Angel. Hopefully we get to stay in touch and talk soon. Absolutely. Talk soon. See you soon. And thank you very much to all the audience here listening to us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Do not become attached to the signal, for the signal belongs to no one. 3 days from now, you will have an important revelation. Knowing this, there is something I need you to do for me.
Positive.
Hey, Internet friends, this is Magic Brad on The Magic Brad Show in Synergy Cafe, and I've got a new friend that's just down 35W here from Minneapolis, living in Dallas, Texas, and his name is Angel, and the last name is Rebo. You there, Angel?
I am here indeed. Thank you for having me, Magic Brad, and thank you everybody who's listening to us today.
How is the weather down there? I understood you guys got some of our Minnesota snow down there a while ago.
Oh, come on, don't remind me. That wasn't the worst thing, right? The worst thing was having no power for a long time. Yeah. So weather today is, we have some clouds and it's sunny, and we were 49 at the beginning of the day. So probably right now we are over 50.
You got the power back.
Oh, yeah. But the funny thing is that we're having internet outages.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, we have to get ready for that.
Hopefully this will go smoothly.
Yeah. Absolutely. No. I mean, the thing is, how to say this? You would never imagine that you would be 35 degrees inside your house. I mean, it's like crazy stuff. And how can we possibly do that?
You see your breath?
it was dark, so I don't remember.
Well, Angel, I don't do these real long. I keep them kind of condensed. And
Oh,
we get right
please,
into the
absolutely.
details.
I'm all about it. Please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How long have you lived in Dallas?
For 10 years now.
Okay, deep roots.
Yeah, it's a great place. It's a great place. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're married and got kids? You're a single wife?
Yeah, I'm married. I have 3 kids.
Okay.
2 live at home. The other one left already. So yeah. So I mean, we are excited. We love it here. We're very, very into the community. We are volunteers in local hospices, volunteers in the schools. So we are all in here. I mean, we love it here. We are north of Dallas, actually, in a place called Plano, and it's a.
Oh, that's where they make the tackle boxes, the fishing tackle boxes in Plano, Texas.
It can be. I don't know. I should be a fisherman. Oh, the tackle boxes. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't. I think it's the second person that has told me that before. It could be. But there's so many headquarters of large corporations right now. So many things happening in the area that probably like the ones that have lived here, probably they are more like acquainted with former companies, like companies that have been here forever.
I'm 63, almost 64 years old. So I'm talking way back when I was a teenager going fishing. I remember I had a plastic Plano tackle box and
wow. Okay.
Plano. So who would have thunk it? So tell us a little bit about.
Let me tell you something. We've been here for 10 years, and there's places that when we came here, there was nothing built. Mm-hmm. And as you know, Texas is the second largest state in the union. So there's so much space to fill, that we are in. I mean, it's amazing the amount of companies and headquarters that are relocating every single year.
It's also fascinating how fast they can build buildings these days.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
it's not like brick by brick by brick anymore. They take them big slabs and put them up, and poof, they got a warehouse.
I agree. I agree. I don't know what's going to happen with the space, with the office space right now, with all the virus and everything. But anyway, people will figure it out. I mean, we're business people, so everybody figures out what to do with the surroundings. But it's a great area. It's an international area. There's people from many different places in the world here. Very important, high-tech industry. So again, multicultural. This is really a melting pot of cultures here in Plano, Texas.
Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
I do.
In the business world?
Totally. Yeah.
You got that entrepreneurial spirit, and we will innovate and adjust. My background is in the event industry, events, travel, and tourism. Guess what? COVID doesn't like that. It said no. So I had to innovate, and that's why I'm doing a lot more online things like this, just staying out there, making it happen. So tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Thank you. Absolutely. So basically, both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs, they hire me to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. Basically, I help them grow or accelerate the growth of their businesses through strategies related to going global, basically. Mm-hmm. And basically, it's two very defined parts. One is, exposure. It's all about how do you get the right exposure in the right market at the right with the right target, right? Mm-hmm. And the other one is how to get, basically it's more like business development. How to find the right clients or partners or partnerships or distributors or resellers. It depends on what service or product you're providing.
So you work with a lot of different type of people, I'm sure. And
yes.
Do you run into like the old school guys that want to do like radio and TV because that's what works, and they won't innovate into a different way?
Well, I haven't had that conversation, but I definitely deal with old school guys. And I think that everybody is so sensitive already about online, that, I have been offered myself to have a show on a radio station. Mm-hmm. But obviously then it's all about, I would have it if I could bring my clients on, and then I could help them, publicize their system, their products and services, right? Mm-hmm. So it all depends. It all goes down to the audience that you are serving. But I think that right now, even the older schoolers are really, they know that they have to be online. And to that purpose, actually, I use LinkedIn extensively. Yeah. I use as you probably have seen, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have 27,000 connections. I I literally interact with a few over now that I counted, it's over 1,500, almost 2,000 people on LinkedIn interacting every single week, literally. So yeah, I have it's where that's my world. It's where I interact with everybody.
Well, the reason I bring it up because I'm in the event business, and there was a party supply store locally here, and the old school guys, they've been around for like 30 years or something like that. They wanted to do radio ads. They didn't really want to put money into this social media thing because they wanted to do the old radio. And you could take that money and you can really put it into a much better place online these days when you understand that kind of thing. Some don't.
But it's a great way of thinking still, because so the question that I like, I'm not the person that asks, can we do this or can we do that? Like, close-ended questions. Mm-hmm. I'm more the kind of guy that asks my clients, my partners, I ask, how can we? Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, the main reason why they wanted to be on radio shows or let's say the classic radio is because of the human touch. And for instance, the other day I was having a conversation with an entrepreneur. He wanted me to help her launch a show online. And actually we ended up thinking of how do we make this show online as the old radio shows in which people they would never miss the show. They already knew at what time it was every single week, right. And they wanted to be there, and they wanted to make phone calls to the show and actually ask them questions live, right. These kind of things, and then the radio shows were many different things, but number one, they were informative, but more importantly, they would accompany you, right? They would be your buddies. You know what I mean? If you felt kind of alone or you didn't know what to do, you would go to those programs because you like the host or co-hosts, right? And it's a place where you wanted to be heard and you were curious about the questions of others. So if you realize this, it's like, how do you keep the human connection alive, having an online interaction? That's the question I'm answering myself for my clients every single day. That's exactly what I do.
Yeah, it's the human engagement, and like you said, the Q&A kind of thing where you're actually talking and solving problems, and so it might be more applicable. So it's always good to ask those open-ended questions, the who, what, where, when, how, why, to get information in rather than saying this is the way it should be. Yes, sir.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are there any specific niches that you work in? Do you work in like
that's a great question.
Real estate?
That's a great question. To be honest, historically, I was working with literally every single industry. Today, it's more related to the mindset of the owner, CEO, entrepreneur, more than to any industry. I really don't think there's any industry I have not worked. To be honest.
So you prefer to work with the owner operator rather than going through the red tape of the committee and the board and all that kind of stuff?
No, that's a great question again. No, I don't mind because I'm good. I'm good physically. Let's say I like to have the face-to-face, Yeah. So that's where I am really, if I may say, right, humbly speaking, good at. I'm good at being face-to-face with people, talking to people, listening to people, and understanding what they want so that I can provide them with what they need. So to your question, I really like when there's a structure already in place because that makes things easier. But that's for corporations, right? But I work a lot with entrepreneurs. So, it's all about the mindset of the person you're working with rather than the kind of company, either size or industry, really.
Sure. Yeah, because sometimes people are concerned about their competition.
Yeah.
And maybe there is no competition. You're just in your own lane. Depends on how fast you want to drive.
And that's one of the reasons why, for instance, last year here in the Dallas business arena, I was helping an accelerator with their entrepreneurs and startup owners. And we did a couple of webinars throughout the year, last year, about pivoting in times of crisis. And a lot of entrepreneurs, while pivoting is like you are starting over your business, right? Somehow. So they were afraid of, is there competition or there's no competition? I think that's the wrong question, very, very humbly speaking, okay? I think that's the wrong question. The thing is, do I really like what I'm going to do or to sell? Do I have the expertise? Is there an audience for this? And are they going to pay for it? If you're able to answer those 4 questions, then the competition really becomes irrelevant. Because if you're able to do yourself, you're able to do something better than the competition, if there's competition, then you're going to thrive. So the question is rather not if there's competition, is how can I differentiate myself? And again, I also believe that the same way I told you before that I don't pick like industries, or I don't pick company sizes, or profiles. I pick mindset. I think it's the exact same way. I think that even if you provide the same service as someone else, I think that you are going to be, there's still going to be an audience, because people will like you as opposed to someone else. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So let's say you and I, we both provide the same service. By nature, there's going to be people that naturally will be attracted to you, and other will be attracted to me, just because of who you are, even because of your physical appearance, the way you speak, your accent. I mean, there's so many variables. I mean, your experience in life, right? There's so many things.
I agree.
That's why I think that it all depends on how badly you want to do this, how really enthusiastic and passionate you are about providing a specific service or selling a specific product, rather than the competition. I'm very skeptical about cutting someone's wings because of the competition. Very skeptical.
Yeah, I've never really understood the competition in business, because if you look at it, McDonald's and Burger King and Coca-Cola and Pepsi are still there, so nobody's won. There is no goal. There's no end goal like there is in a sports game, where there's a goal and a time that runs out.
And there are more and more. It's funny that you mentioned this, because if you go to the central markets or to the Whole Foods markets and these places, you will see that there's probably like 4 or 5 more brands of cola, of cola, refreshment. Yes. There are already. And if you go, actually, I remember when I was still living in Latin America 11, 12 years ago, there was actually a very, very popular soda brand that was from Peru that was competing head to head with both Pepsi and Coca-Cola. And that was, again, 12 years ago, and they started 20 plus years
I'm in
ago.
agreement with that. I think it's, if your mother and father competed, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
You got to work together.
Which ends up, which eventually takes you to a place where, okay, so how can I collaborate as opposed to compete?
I agree.
Maybe so that's why there are so
very
many
similar
ways.
There. I'm building out a thing called the Synergy Collaborative, because that's what it is. It's working together, figure out how can we don't want to take and share the pie, let's make a bigger pie.
So let me tell you something. So every time I speak about the main mistakes that entrepreneurs make when they start their own journey, collaboration is one of the main mistakes. Number 1, because it's a blind spot for them. Number 2, because they are afraid of it. And number 3, because they're not able to do it. They don't know how to do it. It sounds crazy, but if you analyze it, and you said it great, Magic Brad, we are not taught on how to collaborate. How many subjects did you have? How many periods did you have in your elementary or middle or high schools about collaborating? What's the right way for collaborating?
Our brains are functioning with the left and the right. So we already got that good and evil and the black and white and the separation. You got to realize that there is a gray.
Yeah, but also, again, how do you collaborate? How much do you give and how much do you expect in return? Mm-hmm. So it's funny, but I really believe that we are very bad in collaboration. Very bad.
I agree. It's an under. You kind of wonder, okay, I put in 100 hours. You only put in 70 hours, and how come we're splitting 50-50?
Yes.
So I understand our mind thinks logically like that.
Yes.
I had another question about who do you serve? Are you in a specific geographic area? Do you prefer the United States, North America, or is it global? Doesn't matter to you?
Yeah. So I've had in the last 5 years of my business, I've had clients in Europe, in Latin America, in Asia, in Australia, in Canada. So I have customers all over the place. So when it comes down to helping companies go global, there's really, I take clients from almost everywhere in the world. Right now, actually, I'm working on two projects, and one of them is in Asia. like like large expansion projects. And there's really no geographical origin. Obviously, I have a very important footprint here in the Dallas area because I'm here. So there's a lot of executives that know me and know who I am, right? Because they see me around. But my clients really come from anywhere in the world because of the online world.
Because some of the things that I'm working on, it's hard for me to work with someone over in Singapore or Bali, Indonesia, because the calendar is so flip-flopped. We're going to meet on Monday, but guess what? It's Tuesday there.
Yeah.
So I try and stay in the central time zone as much as I can, but
yeah,
to each his own, Yeah.
I just had a conference call video conference call at 9:30 a.m. here in Central, and it was really late at night for them. But we try to compensate. We try to do like late for me, late for them, late for me, late for them. So we try.
I like the way you operate because it's kind of doesn't matter, because over on the other side of the planet, you got early morning people and you got late night people. It depends on the vibe and stuff. So it sounds like you're very open to whoever wants to work with you.
I am.
Done. Yeah.
That's true. So yeah, typically, I have to say I work a lot of hours. A good day for me is a day in which I have a 2 or 3 hour break in the middle.
Okay.
So I see my day in 2 big chunks, really, because of that. So so I have a big chunk in the morning starting really early, and then I have a big chunk, let's say after 5, I have another big chunk of Asia is waking up and Europe is going to sleep, so
what would be some of the key words that you would use for when people are looking for you, if they're searching you out?
Yeah, international expansion, international exposure. I am an influencer, so actually I'm a very strong business to business influencer or business to consumer, because the profile of the 27,000 connections I have on LinkedIn, I told you before, I engage with more than 1,500 every single week. So because of the nature of what I do on LinkedIn, I'm an influencer there. So I am a LinkedIn strategist, a LinkedIn influencer.
Okay.
Let's say a global expansion. Those would be the keywords.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a whole nother world. I got a friend locally here that wrote a book on it. He calls himself the LinkedIn rock star, Mike O'Neill. I don't know if you know that name.
I've heard his name. Yes.
He's definitely a
Mike
go-getter.
O'Neill. Okay.
Lives here in Minneapolis. Used to be out in Denver, but he's really heavy into LinkedIn Navigator and helping lead generation for his clients. That's what
that's good.
Generation through LinkedIn.
I do a lot of that, Magic Brad. A lot.
It's a big world out there, Angel. It's a big world.
Yeah, it's a big world, but it's becoming smaller and smaller.
Well, I think it's important to, sometimes niche down. Myself, I'm working on what I call narrowcasting rather than broadcasting.
Yeah.
Trying to stay within the central time zone so that we're all working on the same time frame. And in the event industry, so I'm specific to the event industry, ideally right here in the Twin Cities. So suppliers of events and people that plan events. So I'm pretty niche down, but inevitably you get into this, oh, that looks interesting, I should sell that software to real estate agents, and you get lost sometimes.
Yeah.
You gotta put the blinders on and stay focused.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
So tell us, how do we get a hold of you if someone says, that sounds interesting, I want to expand my business globally? How do we get a hold of that Angel guy?
Thank you. Absolutely. So it's very easy. As I said before, I'm actually very active online. So it's going to be, if you Google my name, you will see all my social media outlets and posts every single day. Every single day.
Right here, Angel Rebo.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my LinkedIn profile.
Right
Thank you.
There, if it looks like that, that's where you go.
Exactly. Thank you. So you can go to LinkedIn, but the easiest way to reach out to me directly is through my email address. Every single day, I answer every single message. I have a team behind me. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. My email address is very simple. It's Angel, like my name, Angel from Heaven, right? ANGEL, and then at angelrebo.com altogether. Angel Rebo, my last name is spelled like RIB as in boy O.com. Again, Angel at angelrebo.com.
That is easy. 4 letters, Rebo.
Yeah, very easy. Very easy.
Well, Angel, I'm going to sign this off and then beam it up to the
you.
universe and propagate it out to that
Thank
global international world, and we'll see if we can hook some fish.
Magic Brad, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to be, in front of your audience and to be able to have this conversation. I really liked it and enjoyed it. As you said, it's very natural. I think that it's people are really want to see like or listen to authentic conversations with no hidden agendas nor anything. Just being yourself and myself and being ourselves here, trying to inspire and everybody listening to us. Obviously, thank you very much for being with us today.
I agree. I think a lot of the business gets closed on the golf course or at the watering hole as opposed to in the seminar room.
I agree.
Okay, Angel, thank you very much. Be well.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Today we have joining us a thought leader, Angel Rebo. Angel, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here with you and for your, and to your audience, obviously, that they will be patiently listening to us today.
That's great. So Angel, tell us about yourself and what you do these days.
Absolutely. So basically what I do is both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs, they hire me to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. So that means basically that they help them accelerate the growth of their businesses through international expansion strategies. The reason why I do that is because I originally was born in Barcelona in Spain. I started an international career because I learned English and French and then Portuguese. And then, I decided to go international and fast forward, I had, helped more than, 1,500 companies and their C-level executives making certain, purchasing decisions. And also then, I was working literally in more than 30 countries doing that. So, eventually for almost 5 years ago, I decided to go from the corporate world to have my own business. And that's how I ended up doing what I do. Besides that, actually, something that played a key role for me to do that was that I decided also to start my own charity. It's called Wisdom for Kids. And we help underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using their local resources. I'm very strong on LinkedIn, so you will find me on LinkedIn over there. I'm an influencer there and very active, always sharing both personal and professional stories. And many of them are sales-related stories. So I'm so excited to be here, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you. And I love what you're doing as an entrepreneur. Anything that facilitates entrepreneurs, especially I love it with kids. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us about your I'm going to start with your switch to being an entrepreneur. That's a big shift to make. What was that like for you?
Yes, it was obviously when you look back, right? You know that you made so many mistakes, and you would, if you were given another chance, you would definitely do it completely different. You know that feeling?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm sure you do, right?
Yeah, totally.
But also I believe that, regardless of where you stand, like from a spiritual, religious perspective, I think that we are only given the battles that we can really fight and succeed on. Yep. Okay, so that wasn't an exception. So there's always something that happens that keeps you afloat, always, no matter what, Yep. Yep. So I decided to leave corporate America after what? Almost like 17, 18 years, starting in Europe and then being here in the US. I'm right now north of Dallas in Texas. And it was, in the beginning, to be honest, the first thing I can tell you, I remember, is that I really wasn't sure of what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. I had so many paths, right?
Right.
Before leaving the corporate world, I had attended several entrepreneurs, online marketeers kind of conferences in order to explore several, avenues, how to become a consultant, how to become a coach, how to launch products online, how to be a good online marketeer. And on top of that, also, I would say that I never really reflected on everything that I had done before.
Right.
So I was full of doubts with a lot of different possibilities in front of me. And it took to me a while to say, okay, so this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to go down that path only.
Yep.
So that's what I remember. But, definitely, probably the same as you, if I can learn anybody not to make the same mistakes, There I go.
Oh yeah, yeah. So what was that like transitioning where you're selling for other people, now you're selling for yourself?
Yeah, so number one is making sure that the imposter syndrome was not affecting me, right? I remember that it wasn't until I literally sat down, and when I was telling you before that I had done business in 33, 34 countries, until that very moment, and that was months and months and months after I had started my own entrepreneurial career, I sat down and I started to write down, okay, so how many companies have I helped in my life? And I tried to, like, cut and paste different spreadsheets from different, places I had worked and done business with, and companies and industries. I put them all together. And then I said, okay, how many countries? Those different companies, where are they based? So I started to make a list of different countries. Okay, and then how did I help them? So I helped them do this, 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 and this. When I took stock of that, experience, it was then when I realized, okay, so I might have something to offer.
Yeah.
I might have something to sell to the others. So actually, I made the decision. I made the decision of, I'm going to be extremely active on LinkedIn. Okay, so that was my first decision. So I haven't really used networking online before. Right. I was using it like reactively. Now I'm going to be proactive, and I'm going to make LinkedIn the place where I'm going to conduct all my sales. Before, I don't remember selling a single thing. Nothing since the 90s. Well, I don't remember when LinkedIn was founded, but until 2016, when I decided to set up my own company. Yep. So that was the first thing. So I started to see, okay, so I'm going to do this. How do I create an audience? And then I started to learn how to do business on LinkedIn, how to reach out to people. I made so many mistakes. I mean, crazy things. Crazy things. It really, obviously there were people blocking me, and you name it, trying to reach out the wrong way, and, trying to be artificial, trying not to be me, to be honest, because I was in this, if I had to describe it, in some sort of quicksand, that you know what you do, but you really don't. And then you one step forward and two steps backwards all the time. And then obviously after starting, like, doing some marketing, and then having the conversations, right? And how am I going to prepare my own proposals, and what are my own proposals going to look like? And I have to say, probably one of the mistakes I made was also that I didn't reach out to the people that could have supported me, people that I could have partnered up with. Oh, what a big mistake, Right. Definitely. That was a big mistake. But, I'm alive. I still have a family. I still have a home. I still have a couple of cars. I still go on holiday and I vacation from time to time. So it's not that bad, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people are afraid to make that jump, but it's like anything else in life where you're making a big change like that you have to be all in. You have to be committed to it, and you have to be committed to success, which, for being a sales leader for our listeners, they might not want to be an entrepreneur, but hey, that's like, hey, I maybe I want to make that transition into sales leadership, or maybe I want to go for that position at another firm that might be a much bigger role than I have today. What should they take from the lessons you've learned to motivate them to make that leap?
Well, number one, whatever the route is that they pick is good. Okay, it's okay. So because we tend to be so hard on ourselves, oh my God. Okay, so whatever the decision you take is going to be the right one for you. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, if you decide to make that leap, that change, then I would say, just as you said, there's a mantra I use with all my clients all the time, which is take imperfect action now. Take imperfect action now. That's my favorite one. Yep. So I would say, there's no perfect path to where you want to go.
Right.
But the reality is that the sooner you make certain mistakes, the sooner you're going to get there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there's in the startup world, there's this concept called the minimum viable product.
Yes.
Okay. So any startup, when they're going to launch something, They say, okay, so what's the minimum value in the form of a service or a product I'm going to put together so that the market is going to react positively and it will start acquiring my services or my products, right? So this is so much more simple than what you think. You just have to reach out to the people that you already know, or the potential business partners, and go to them and say, hey, I just started. I just got out, the corporate world. I want to do this. Would you be willing just to have a coffee, over coffee conversation and tell me that makes sense? And if you would be willing to tell me your feedback about this, it's as simple as that. Yes. In a week, you can have 5-10 conversations like that, and already know what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and start having those conversations with potential clients. Again, I was talking about making mistakes on LinkedIn and sending the wrong messages. If you genuinely, even if it's people that you don't know, if you genuinely reach out to people and ask them for help, I mean, don't explain them your life, okay? Just, I need your help because I just left the corporate world and I would like to, proof test something that I want to change, to launch to the market. I tell you, maybe it's not going to be a 50%, but there's going to be a 10%, 20% of people that are going to say yes. And they will be able to meet, they will be willing to meet over coffee with you to discuss that. I mean, and the ones that have been there, the ones like you and me that we have been there, oh my God, do we want to help other people not to make the same mistakes?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of
It's
course
so
we want.
important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think that's the most important thing. And again, you don't have to wait. I remember that one of my excuses was, we look for so many excuses. As soon as I left the corporate world, my company held me and put me, they gave me a very nice package and everything. And they gave me an outplacement company to work with, right? To find another job.
Right.
I remember being the only one, very high level executives on the same meeting, blah, blah, blah. I was the only one in the entire room that wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
The only one, every single meeting. So I would have a meeting, 1 or 2 meetings per week with them, with other executives looking for a position. I was the only one that wanted to be an entrepreneur. The rest wanted to have another job, another gig, or another company, which is good. Again, it's good. It's perfect. And again, there's nothing wrong. But the sooner you start going down that path, the better for you.
Yes.
Because you need reinforcement, and you need reinforcement, and you need to learn lessons. Nobody will learn their lessons. You need to be yourself in front of the reality that you're going to be, acting on. And the new reality is you before other companies that want or might want what you are going to offer to them.
Yeah. And I liked your advice to work your network, seek out help, ask for help from people in your network to say, hey, I'm thinking about making this transition, be it, maybe it's a new job, maybe it's not to be an entrepreneur, but there's still a lot of people that have done the same thing already that, that are saying, hey, whatever you do, don't do this. I did that and it was a dismal failure. Try this instead. It's you can't buy that kind of help.
Exactly. And also something else that I didn't mention, but something that would have helped me a lot is probably to ask for help, even to pay someone to coach me in that process.
Yes.
There's coaches out there. There's people that have done this. There's people that help you get from a position at the corporate towards becoming a successful entrepreneur. There's people doing that. Oh my God, I wish I had taken the decision, I had made the decision of hire someone to do that for me. Honestly, the only resource which is scarce in our lives is time. That's the only one. It's time. We will always get money and anything else, but time goes by. So start asking for help, hire someone that can help you bridge that gap, bridge that gap to the first dollar, to the first purchase order. Have someone help you get there. And maybe the only piece of advice of who to hire, there's literally thousands of coaches out there that can help you do that, but look for someone that's made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that's great. So when you're working with your clients, is there a common struggle or pain point that they have that hold them back from success?
Yes. It's definitely, they don't feel comfortable selling. They know they have a value proposition. Some of them some of them have a solution and there's a problem that exists. Mm-hmm. Others have a solution, but maybe the problem doesn't exist or it's not big enough. Right. But it doesn't matter. That's why we are there to talk and we're there to discuss and how to make that value proposition really viable in the market. But still, I think that that's the most important thing, to make sure that I help them do something that they're just feeling comfortable. Not everybody feels comfortable asking for the purchase order. And needless to say, not everybody knows how to go to the market, which is another thing, right? Yep. That's why I always say it's expansion and exposure. Expansion and exposure. So expansion is developing business, but exposure means what are all those marketing tools, strategies, and tactics that are going to help you to get to that place, to get to these people that might hire you or buy your products. And that's what they have in common. Let me add something to this, if I may, Chris, which is obviously every time we talk right now, when I'm having this conversation with you, I'm attracting a specific kind of person, right? Yeah. I'm attracting a specific kind of entrepreneur, a specific kind of C-level executive. I don't attract everybody. And that's okay. I know what I'm saying, and I'm being me, and I know that I'm going to attract certain persona or a certain avatar, and that's okay. The world is full of people that need my services, and it's the same with you, and it's the same with you, Chris, and it's the same with everybody that wants to go from corporate to becoming an entrepreneur. We are unique in our lives, we are unique in our experiences, and we are unique in the way that we can deliver that value to our potential clients. Yep. That's why we'll never, that's a conversation you've had probably hundreds, if not thousands of times. I remember when I was training my sales force, the new sales reps would come to me and say, hey, okay, so where am I going to find leads? Oh, that's an interesting conversation. So, we would tell them, okay, so this is the source of leads, and I'm sure that your sales VP or your sales manager is going to give you a whole bunch of leads, and then there will always be someone in that sales training, someone raising their hands and saying, and what if I finish my list of leads and nobody has wanted to give me an appointment? I said, okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna do that myself. I'm gonna expose myself with you in front of the rest of the class, right? So if you ever finish all your lists of leads, I commit to you that I will be sitting down with you for an entire day, and we will both look for additional leads or list of leads online or in any other institutions that could provide you with potential clients of your business. Yeah. Obviously, the message I was trying to convey is it that there are not enough leads or potential clients to you, or is it that maybe the work that you're doing is not good enough? Maybe the questions that you're asking, maybe the phone calls, maybe the places where you're looking, right? The reality is, Chris, that nobody ever came back to me, since the 90s, asking for lists of additional leads. Right. Nobody. Yeah. So at the end of the day, obviously, we all have to learn somewhere, and we all have to start, with inside sales or whatever, or telemarketer, marketing, or whatever that is.
Yeah. What's your craziest sales story from your career?
Well, there's plenty, but I have to say the one that I will never forget. So this is the deal, okay? So this is a multinational company. They're all over the world. What they do is they do electric motors. Yeah. Okay. Like all sizes, they're huge. Okay. They are originally from Brazil. Okay. And they were basically opening they had just acquired a new massive manufacturing plant in a specific place in Mexico. Okay. So the headquarters were using a specific technology, right? Which was actually the technology that I was representing. Okay, so I was covering the entire territory at that time, and I said, okay, wonderful. So we're just going to just acquire this company, so it's going to be an easy sale, right? So they just acquired this additional company here in Mexico. In Brazil, the standard technology is our technology, so it's going to be a piece of cake. Right. It's going to be a piece of cake, right? It's, they already know the advantages, blah, 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 everything. All right. Yep. To make things worse, I'm originally from Spain. As I said before, I was in Mexico. And I was doing that. That wasn't a direct sale from me. So I was doing that indirectly through one of my business partners, okay? One of my channel partners, to say it properly. All right. So I said, just go there, do all the groundwork, and then whenever you need me to, for the final stages of the negotiation, I show up. Yeah. What was even worse was that the CEO and general manager of that company in Mexico, he was also from Spain. So I said, oh my God, we will be able to talk about soccer, and we will be able to have a nice meal together. And we will, so you name it. When you already have this image in your brain.
It's lining up. Everything's lining up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are the chances of this Brazilian company buying a company in Mexico, and the CEO and GM, he's a Spaniard, right? Yeah. Okay, so we start the sales process, blah blah blah, and then I started receiving symptoms, right? Hey, there's a strong team. They had something like a 35-40 engineering team, and those were each one represented X thousands of dollars of that particular proposal, right?
Yep.
So, but suddenly from the sales director of that channel partner of mine, hey, there's a strong group which are using a completely different technology. These guys have never used our technology. They use another one, and they're very strong, and they really believe it's much more important, right? So I have to say that unfortunately we took shortcuts. We didn't analyze the decision process properly. We didn't analyze the decision criteria properly. We didn't have enough conversations with the economic buyer, with the CEO, with the GM. So we took so many shortcuts that we ended up losing the deal.
Oh my.
And it was several hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Several hundreds of thousands. So I will never forget the name of that company. Obviously, I'm trying to be extremely respectful and don't disclose the name of the company. But I have to tell you something. With the director of sales of that channel partner, we became friends because we were badly defeated. And obviously, all the company knew about that deal. When that deal has so much visibility inside the company that everybody's expecting us to win it.
Yeah.
So we had to go back and say, we lost it. What? We lost it. Yeah, we lost the deal. Well, to recover that account, it took to us 4 or 5 more years.
Wow.
4 or 5 more years to get it back, to have, to perform, enough proofs of concept there, and to make sure that we were doing the right benchmarks of technology against technology, blah, blah, blah. And I guarantee you, we never took any other shortcut. We didn't take any other chances in any other deal. I tell you that.
Oh, I bet. Dealing with rejection is a big part of sales, and being a sales leader and modeling that, how you handle rejection. I think it's important for a sales leader to model that for their team. What's your recommendations for sales leaders in terms of how they create the proper perspective in their sales team, especially the younger people that are getting started in sales?
I would say number one is that for your potential clients, future clients, you call them suspects, leads, prospects, whatever, depending on the maturity, but their perspective is their reality. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. So your reality is not their reality. Okay. So that's the number one thing. So the number one thing I would like to say is, this is a marathon. Okay. So just you have to learn, and don't burn your bridges. It's a matter of time. You have to learn how to do this. This is as anything else, as playing tennis, as swimming, as driving, as anything else. This is a long run. Okay, so it's going to take some time for you to perfect whatever you want to do. And remember, be yourself all the time. That would be my second one. Be yourself. Don't pretend to be anybody else. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be mentored. You don't have to receive lessons. No. Okay, but be yourself, because if you're not yourself, you're going to be, sidetracked, whatever that is, and you're going to feel saying, I should have done what my gut feel was telling me. Okay, so just be there. And third, the third thing is always have the tough conversations. Don't hold anything to you. Always have those tough conversations. So what I'm trying to say is always make sure that whatever decision, whatever proposal you're making, whatever conversation, it's for the good of your client.
Right.
It's for the good of your client. Okay. So genuinely care about what is important for the client. Remember one thing, as I said before, perception is their reality.
Yeah.
They want something, but you believe as a salesperson that they need something else.
Right.
Okay. So it's what they want. It's what they want. So remember, it's their reality. So you have to be there all the time. Okay. So those would be my, most important, pieces of advice. And again, it's, you learn a lot. I mean, I learned from a desk making phone calls. That's how I learned.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how I personally learned. I didn't even, it took to me more than a year to start making, sales appointments with the field reps. But it is what it is. It is, we have to learn. We have to make mistakes.
You have to struggle. That's right.
Yeah.
So let's transfer our discussion here to talk about CRM. When it comes to CRM and your career in sales, did you love it or do you hate it?
I loved it. And I loved it because it helped me structure myself and organize myself. The real, can I use a brand, or can I use I'd rather not?
We try to stay away from that. And just talk in general terms. We don't want to.
There wasn't
one over another.
No, it's okay. So, going back in time in the late 90s, there was one system that was really like the number one that everybody would use, and everybody would use that one. I remember when the company was working with was over $1 billion in revenue, and they decided to buy that, right? That was a multi-million-dollar deal that they had to invest on. I remember it was like a savior. I mean, I remember even though it was complicated, like lots of fields and things and interactions, it was like, oh my God, great. We have a way like to put all that information and to keep that information in at some place so that it's going to help me have a better possibility to follow up on those deals. Because at the end of the day, following up is everything. When every single industry says that the millions are in the follow-up, you bet. And CRMs really help you be organized. That's for me, that was, I remember my first time ever using that particular CRM. And I've always used different. After that, I use CRMs consistently.
Yes,
it's the peace of mind that you say. Again, a lot of people see it as a way to control, which I understand and which I agree. You need to control your sales force. You need to have some level of accountability with your sales force. I get that, but it's a help. It's something that's going to help you. It's part of your support system, and you need support systems to excel in sales.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool for salespeople because everybody goes into slumps, and when that happens, the sales leader can use the information in CRM to say, hey, look, I see you're doing this here. Have you thought about maybe trying this? But if you don't have that information in CRM, how is the leader be able to coach effectively, because they have no insight as to what they've been doing or what's going on?
Exactly. And, and to your point, some people don't like to be controlled. Some people feel like, I'm the top gun here. I don't need anybody to overlook what I'm doing.
Right.
With all due respect, we belong to an organization.
That's right.
The final goal of that organization is to pay back to the owners, to the investors, to pay back, to the shareholder, to give that additional value to the shareholders. They invested their money, they invested their time, they invested their wealth in making that company successful. You have a job because of them. So anything that you do, which is going against that contradicts that, I regret to say, it's not right.
That's right.
It's not right. The end goal of any organization is to increase shareholder value no matter what. And you as a salesperson, you have to be aware that every business decision that you make has an impact and a financial implication, has a financial implication in the company and in the profitability of the company. So you're part of that structure. I understand that you like to, sell big and close these big, massive deals and great revenue. But okay, so what are the implications of closing that deal? First, as I said before, for the client, is it going, because in the moment that you close a sale, remember, it's good for you because you get the revenue, but it's a problem in the financial statements, right? It's remember, you are a problem for your client until your client starts to recover the investment. Remember that.
That's right.
And it's the same for your company. So, okay, you get the revenue, but who has to fulfill that order? Your entire organization behind you has to fulfill the order. Did you take everything into consideration so that you will be able to profitably fulfill that order for your client? These are the kind of things that you have to take into consideration every time you close a sale.
Yeah, I could not have said that better, Angel. That is so.
Thank you.
That's one of the discussions I love to have when we engage with a client is, okay, what happens when that deal's won? What is that being supported by your CRM? Is the information in your CRM to support the team that downstream that, as you said, they now have to take care of that customer. They have to own that relationship and make sure they achieve the ROI on their investment. So important.
Absolutely. I mean, in all honesty, if we want to keep our teams accountable, I mean, we have to, and we want all of them to be engaged, right? I mean, we have to educate them. I mean, very honestly, I mean, because you sell every single day. So I think that having those financial implications conversation is like the elephant in the room.
Yes.
It's like the elephant in the room. Who feels really comfortable? I mean, have you ever felt this? Let me ask you a question, Chris. Have you ever been in that situation in which you're trying to close a deal, you're in a negotiation table, and suddenly the CFO of your client shows up? Oh my God, you are with the fingers like this, cross fingers, saying, I pray to God that the questions from the CFO are not going to be that difficult, so I can still answer them, and they will still be interested in doing business with me.
Yes.
Because if we get into, if he pulls up his financial statements and he starts going on like, okay, so this and this and this and this, and he starts making these difficult questions. Oh my God, you might even have an MBA, but even if you have an MBA, how long ago did you forget all the financial principles?
Oh yeah.
That will eventually allow you to understand what the CFO is going to say, but you still want to win the PO, right?
Yep.
So this is exactly where we are. So we have to be humble and we have to receive the education in order to be able to, be engaged in our company, be aligned with everybody else, and then we can be kept accountable.
Yep. No, I love it. So Angel, we're coming up on our time here on Sales Lead Dog. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out and connect?
Thank you. The best way for them to connect with me is definitely to go and send me an email. It's very simple, like my name. It's Angel, Angel, at angelrebo.com. It's ANGL again, RIB as in boy O, RIB as in boy, B as in boy O.com. So it's Angel at angelrebo.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, very, very active. So you can, reach out to me, Angel Rebo. My brand is the CEO Confidant, So you can go to LinkedIn. You will find me there easily. Yep. Either my team or myself are going to answer your questions, your emails, your messages on LinkedIn. We are very, very proactive in engaging with everybody. Yep. And it will be a pleasure, obviously, to serve you.
Yeah. Well, it's been great talking with you, Angel. I'm glad we got to finally connect and talk. This has been terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for the opportunity, Chris, obviously. And thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the audience listening to us today.
Awesome.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.